Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the final Resident Retrospect. This one on the campaign as a whole. And this is going to be quite exciting. Hopefully a good deal shorter than the last one. That one was a bit of an anomaly, but we covered a pretty long arc.
It was half the show.
Yeah, practically half the show.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole show.
Yes, but only selectively. We're going to be going through and spilling what secrets remain. And like I said, the what?
The beans.
Yeah, spilling the beans is what we're going to be about. So, as I've mentioned previously, this is pretty much going to be led mostly by you guys. I have some stuff prepared, but whatever questions you have for one another or for myself is basically the last chance to get all the secrets out that we are able to disclose. So, well, I guess there's probably some stuff that's still off the table. Like, Lauren, I don't know how much you're going to go into Mr. G's backstory, since that did get given to a character, and that character has chosen not to disclose it.
I was thinking about it. I'm probably going to talk about it if anyone wants to know. Simply because it wouldn't make that big of a difference.
That's true, and you have gone over.
And you're letting us as people know more than the characters of a campaign know.
Yeah.
Because like even if you as players know, it wouldn't affect how your characters interacted with that person, because that person is basically literally dead.
Yeah. Also, I have come to realize that I did not set up for playing music this time around like we did last time, and that worked out really well. I could still play it, but I wouldn't be able to go through to you all.
That's fine. I'm gonna find some save screens from one of your
there you go.
Past XPs.
Yeah. Use the save room music that I sent you guys.
I'm gonna use Resident Evil 3.
You can get the Dog Island.
I'm just gonna look for
Sure, do that.
That's
curate
something
It's
calm,
good
something
music.
nice and calming and relaxing. I'll just do the calming music from Resident
I'll play the
Roleplay.
Anna Cute soundtrack.
I'm gonna listen to Jet Li's The One soundtrack.
I don't know if that's calming.
I could
mean,
listen to some. Actually, I
It's
could
the way
listen to
that I
some-
live.
Ooh, I could play some Bleeding Girl.
It's still Capcom. I could just put on some chill Phoenix Wright music. in
There
the
you go.
background.
So, yeah, and for those who don't know what I was referencing a moment ago, it is a thing that I send all of the players save room music, Resident Evil save room music, every time I send them their XP receipts, where I tell them how much XP they got from the past session. So that's been a tradition, and I just send like a little video link with one of the Resident Evil save room themes on loop on a kind of long video. Now, those were actually, I had a whole routine for giving you guys your XP the morning after. I already missed that. That was fun and relaxing, because I had it all set up where basically every time I had it systematic that everyone would always receive a different save room theme, and you wouldn't get
in a row.
Yeah, you wouldn't get the same one more than twice in a row, or twice or 3 times, because I would go back 2 weeks to see what the last 2 you got were and make sure you didn't get that one again or any of those 2 again.
Yeah.
So some work was put in to make sure that there were different save room themes on those. So that was a lot of fun. That's just one of my little idiosyncrasies that I enjoyed doing with the campaign. Well, speaking of save rooms, also hello, Brenny the Dragon Slayer. Doing well. But we'll glad you could be here for at least a little bit. So, speaking of save rooms, we have some stats to look at. Because we were kind of joking around about this, but I actually did put together a little bit of a score for you guys, because as you all know, this is a Resident Evil campaign, and at the end of every Resident Evil game, you get your results screen. And so I have put together some results and given you guys a Capcom style grade based on your performance in this campaign. And Lauren has...
Do you get participation awards?
Maybe I haven't put. I didn't. I was thinking about doing achievements, but I didn't have enough time to think of too many. We all know Chauncey did the most damage, though, so there's that.
That's yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, if there was one achievement, there would be that.
Most overall damage.
I think it's technically, if you're gonna do achievements, Chauncey would be most kills, most innocents killed, most world leaders pissed off.
Most innocents killed like by proxy. G has most innocents killed directly.
That's fair. That's fair.
Katara's just achievement, big health.
Big health. Yeah, big highest hit
big
points.
Health.
Also highest movement speed, which your maximum potential movement speed in the final battle there would have been
Bosses killed.
Most fire damage.
360.
Maximum movement speed for Inyo, yeah.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
she
that's
was at her
right.
max.
When
Well,
Enyo
no.
was at her max.
Because that
Actually,
wasn't
no.
a permanent thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Enyo
right? 'Cause
at her
it's
max,
like-
that's true. That would have been max movement speed because that was because she had Phantom
that
Dash.
haste is on top of that with
Because
Phantom Dash, too.
Katara had the flight and the haste, but she didn't have the Phantom Dash, which was
another bonus action dash, or it was which doubled
all of her dashes and then
like-
gave her a bonus action. So
Yeah, so
that would
that's
have been
like-
Enyo was gone.
Blur.
So nonetheless,
Katara gets the award for most charismatic, non-charismatic person.
and bosses.
yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
she
probably.
probably got most how you want to do this is. Yeah, and she definitely had highest hit points achievement for sure.
Lowest hit points goes to who? Me or Kevin?
That would be Mr. G by a good margin because
Wow,
Kevin started
wow.
multi-classing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He's
Oh.
getting freaking D10s.
Yeah.
I have another good achievement.
Oh.
Best team. What is it called?
Yeah, team kill.
Not team kill. Not team kill. But I guess
Nuria had some team kills.
Not team kills.
Friendly
it's just
fire.
Best assist.
friendly. Yeah,
Most
best friendly
person.
fire. Yeah, best friendly fire. Goes
Oh
to
yeah.
Nuria. Go to Nuria with
She gets
Danger
the
Close.
badge of Blue Falcon.
Danger close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Most pushed off of buildings.
Most damage given to fellow players.
Wonder what's Kevin's achievement?
Kevin's
That's a
achievement
good
is
question.
Longest time frozen.
That's what I was thinking. That was the first thing that came to my
Toilets
mind.
cleaned.
survive the longest at the lowest level.
Put up with the most psychotic people.
Witness the most
shortest
character
amount-
deaths.
Shortest amount of time as a guest star, even though it was written for longer.
That's true. He probably had. I don't know if this is an achievement, but least screen time for a main character. Wait, no,
Well, he was
yeah,
a side character at the time still.
yeah. But even
Yeah,
as a
but he
side
was
character, he had a
written in.
little bit less time than Nuria overall.
Layup, I was like, oh, hi, guys. Bye.
Bye guys.
Or
It wasn't us that stopped you from coming. We even waited for you. Like, do you want to come? No, I'm good. Okay.
All right, bye.
Story. Let's trying to play the story.
Now, I guess for Mr. G, you would probably get the best performance achievement for highest RP XP count in a single episode.
Oh right, for
Yeah, you still ended with that one. That never got topped.
The world went gray.
Yeah, the world went gray. Although there were some competitors. A lot of people broke records in that one. There was a lot of XP to go around.
Because I think it was like Chauncey said it on the episode before.
Yeah.
And then I think I broke it the episode after.
No, it wasn't the episode before. It was one of the. It was the episode.
That was
the
Electric Sheep, right?
Yeah, Electric Sheep. That wasn't directly before that episode,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was few episodes in between because he had to do all the CIA stuff there.
Right. You had to go to Langley.
So nonetheless, we do not have professional stat trackers like they do at Critical Role with their dedicated Crit Roll Stats team. so we can't go too in depth. However, I did want to put together a little bit of a results screen to keep in the Resident Evil tradition, make it feel super Capcom-y. So, are you ready to see some stuff?
I'm ready.
So,
Sure.
I guess Mel, you're one of our foremost Resident Evil experts, along with myself here. And as you know, there are a handful of things that are generally on the results screen, right? Like, let's name a few.
Mhm.
They usually, obviously, there's your total time. There's
Your
always
total
one of the big
time.
ones.
They usually had your number of saves.
Yeah, saves was another big one, and that would directly affect your score oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would also have, at least on some of them, they would have your they would keep track of your number of first aid sprays used or something like that, number of heals used sometimes. Sometimes that would affect your score, sometimes it wouldn't.
Yeah.
But that would be a difficult thing to track. I wasn't able to do that. That would require dedicated stat trackers from the outset. So I'm going to be rating you based on a couple of criteria here and kind of going in that same line. So you guys, it's going to be based on your total time, which we have in the exact amount because of the files. Saves, which would be the number of sessions that you guys played. Because since there was a save room theme between each one, that's basically where your character saved each time and then picked up the next time.
Are we able to reload then?
No.
Let's go back to episode 10.
It's hardcore mode. It's hardcore
Nadine
mode.
reloaded.
That's fair. She was just like, oh. She got the
Respawn.
"You are dead" screen and she hit retry.
Yep.
Wait, you can do that?
I mean, technically, Chauncey did too.
How many did you get? Was it 1 or 2?
What's up?
Chauncey.
I've only died once.
Okay, yeah, because I remember there was
Did
it was that's how he lost his eye.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to remember if he died any other
I mean,
time.
Well, that
technically.
wasn't really dying. He didn't die in that scene.
I don't think I got a
screen.
"You were dead" screen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did. I think I'm the only one that I know of, at least, that got a realignment.
Well, we're gonna talk about realignments in a bit. We got Mr. G had a whole realignment arc, but I didn't force that one. That was the player's choice.
Yeah.
But again, we'll get into that in a bit. So we'll go total time, saves, which is the number of sessions, total player character deaths, as well as you're going to get a lore score as well for the number of files and audio logs that you
it's a
guys
lore
picked
run.
up.
Oh.
Yeah. That's not a usual one for Resident Evil games, but I figured that would be a relevant one. That's something we could measure here. So
That's true. We could try to 100% the game next time.
So here's your results with a special custom results screen from Lauren.
Watch the stream.
Oh yeah.
Watching.
No. Wait. I wasn't ready.
So
I'm not ready.
the total runtime was 4 hours, 3 minutes, or rather 403 hours, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not
I know.
One episode.
Hold on.
403 hours, 20 minutes, 33 seconds. So the way I grade you guys here is for the total time, I assume basically that because from the start, what I wanted to shoot for was circa 3 hours a session. I thought that sounded like a good number. And so I was like, okay, total time, like an S plus rank would be if you could meet a target of 3 hours average per session, which would have been a 342 hours total, given the number of sessions there were. And 342 hours was about 85% of the actual runtime that you guys got, so that's a B. So,
Makes sense.
there was the saves, your total sessions, were 114. Because it was 110 episodes. There was the captive bonus episode, the what happened to the others bonus episode, the Rockford Island one shot with Mr. G and Chauncey, which wasn't recorded.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. In hindsight, I would have recorded everything. Just
Yeah.
I don't even care. And then the Nuria's escape from the Raccoon University little solo session. So 114 sessions in total. And of course, not counting the pilot episodes, because those weren't really part of the campaign.
Yeah.
And so for this one, I was kind of measuring by basically a target of 3 sessions per mission. I went through and counted, going through my outline, and figured out that there were 33 missions in total. Basically, 33 separate adventures.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 sessions, a rate of 3 sessions per mission would basically average out to 99 sessions total, which was 87% of the actual number of sessions that you guys had. So I was like, that's close enough to be a B+. I'll give it to you.
Nice.
So, deaths. Now, this is basically counting strict, because I gave the "you are dead" screen more times than 9.
I was gonna say, like, if that, like, I don't know how many times people got "you are dead" screens, but I was looking at that number when I was making it, I was like, I'm like half of these.
So this death count is actually a little bit more generous to you guys, because like I said, I gave out more "you are dead" screens, but this is basically only counting characters whose hearts stopped, who straight up died, not just were eliminated from the campaign. So, however, it is all player characters, even if they weren't player characters when they died. If they're a player character who died, they get counted towards this. So it was 9 total, and then just counting down from S+, then S, S-, A+, etc. for each death. So that brings you guys down to B-.
What if the same character heart stopped twice?
Who are you thinking of?
Archaea?
Oh,
Yeah, it's still
you're
one
right.
death. Still one death.
Okay.
Still the same character. Yeah, well, here's what I counted. Just for your guys' information. It was Archaea, Sarah Black, Ashlea Madigan, Nadine Maltby, Bella Feliciano, aka Nicole, Jamla and Conky, Ali Gold, Enyo, and Mr. G.
So
She has a heart.
Wasn't that? It wasn't that.
You know what I mean.
So Lauren didn't die the most.
That's true.
Well,
Wow.
you still had.
I got the most.
Actually,
I got
no,
the
yeah,
most
you
"you are
did.
dead" screens.
You have 3
but-
dead characters in that list. Because you had
So
Ashlea,
does Lisa though.
Jamla. No, Lisa only had. Oh yeah, you're right. She did
I think
have
we
3.
both have 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both have 3
Lisa
in that.
also had 3. Yeah.
But you did have to.
Just end your-
Yeah.
I mean, her heart didn't even stop beating. It evaporated.
Yeah.
And the
That
ventilation
was the
system now.
explosion.
You did have to kiss Emil goodbye, though. So in a sense, most pseudo character
Well, I mean,
deaths.
Yeah.
But again,
So
that's not
like,
counted
Mr.
for
G,
the purposes of this.
Mr. G on his own got like 2 or 3 "you are dead" screens.
So
Wait, Mr. G never died.
yeah, he did in the
Yeah,
final
his heart
battle. He
stopped.
did.
In the final battle, he was dead.
He was straight dead.
He had to be
Oh.
revived.
Yeah, which is why we had to cast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary had to cast revive on him.
Mhm.
Because his heart
He
straight up
proper
stopped.
died.
He lost all of his death saves. He was dead. For
But I think,
less than a minute.
I think I only got 2 screens for him because there was the one with Aiden and then that one.
Yeah, when Aiden took you out and we weren't sure whether he was going to return to the show after that, that you did get a "you are dead" screen then.
Yeah.
So, and then finally, for the lore, you had, there are 52 files and audio logs in total. You guys found 50 of them, and we already went over those because the 2 you missed were in
Yeah.
the Raccoon City arc, just from unexplored areas of the underground nest lab. So that basically brings you down to an S-. But you guys found an overwhelming majority of the lore, which is good. So good on you. Good lore run. So
Oh yeah.
then the final rank, averaging out between all of those, brings you guys to a B+.
You boy.
So there you go.
Hey.
To be fair,
That's better than my grades.
oh no. I mean, to be fair, those Capcom results screens are pretty brutal in my opinion. But they basically rely on the fact that you're going to be replaying this multiple times. On a first playthrough, you're pretty much never going to get a good score. So I would have
No.
been happy to see a B+ on my first playthrough of any Resident Evil game.
Yeah, because their whole entire thing, is based on just how fast you get through something.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
how
lot of
fast you get
replayability.
through it. I guess it's a good example. Actually, a good example where things got a bit more harsh on the characters, on the players, was Resident Evil 5. Because they based you on accuracy.
That's true, yeah, because they
enemies.
rated your combat
also
and
true,
stuff, yeah.
Damage, your score items, your clear time. Whereas the older games are just based on
Accuracy.
your time, your time, your number of saves, and then even though it doesn't say it in the outro, or I should say in the final result screen, how many times you used a first aid spray.
Mm-hmm.
Because using first aid sprays actually drops your grade.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, because it's not all heals, it's just first aid sprays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess because those are considered freebies. You didn't have to like work to mix those together or anything.
The easiest Resident Evil game, I think, that had the easiest grade system, in my opinion, was Resident Evil 4.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was based on hit ratio, your enemies killed, and the number of times you died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they weren't really keeping track of your time on that one, I don't think, too much.
Mhm.
Yeah, also, I mean, time kind of relevant for us because there's moments where we spent hours and only 1 minute happened.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you guys certainly weren't speedrunning it. But you did get a solid...
No, we were looking for that loot bonus.
We
Oh,
were
yeah.
making up for it in the S plus on the
You got an S- on the lore.
or S minus on the lore on all the lore drops.
So, yeah, there you go. Congratulations. Also, thank you, Lauren, for the little custom Resident Roleplay
Yep.
results screen of the
Yeah.
war terminal, right? That was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty dope. So, with the results out of the way, shall we get into discussing the campaign of Resident Roleplay?
I think I'm good.
So, as usual, we'll be going through in chronological order. And we'll be talking about, in this case, instead of, episode or adventure by adventure, we'll go through one arc at a time. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to make them known in the course of discussion relating to any events that happened during that arc. So, starting at the very beginning, back in Arc 1, the Arclay Cabin. Oh man, memories. Memories. Back where it all began. In the old days when your characters were so different. Well, some of your characters weren't even around yet, so not too much discussion perhaps for some of you.
Yep.
But, yeah, that was kind of where it all began. I don't know if there are any outlying oddities that you guys have on your mind, but I did kind of want to go over... Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's have field some questions first.
I do want to ask. So the whole thing behind when Katara was getting questioned
Mm-hmm.
about what's happening over at this pharmacy, all this other stuff. If she had passed that deception check and whatnot, how would the rest of them have gone to the cabin outside of just Katara at that point?
That's an excellent question. Because that part was pretty open-ended, actually. Because it started out with you guys basically in free roam in Raccoon City. I just let you guys off the bus, and with Emil in particular, just fresh off the bus, and let you guys run around and find each other. Well, while also cutting back between the different characters to kind of show the converging paths. But with that one, because I didn't really have a set game plan for... I mean, obviously, I had planted all the threads for you guys to follow, but I didn't really have a set game plan or any backup plan for how to force that to happen. But I was confident I'd be able to think of something if I needed to, or if things went terribly wrong. At least cut the session a little short and think of something in between. But I don't know. What about the rest of you? What would happen? How would you have reacted if she super succeeded? Well, I guess, Lauren, you're the only person who was there on that episode that's here.
Get back on the bus to Minnesota. I don't know, man. I was following detective guy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Mike Foster.
Mike, yeah.
Yeah, well, Mike was the NPC. His role kind of arose out of necessity, because obviously Chauncey wasn't around yet at that time. Well, in fact, we hadn't even established the connection between Chauncey and Mike at that point. That was something that we came up with between episodes 1 and 2.
Really?
Yeah, episode 1 happened.
Yeah.
And Chauncey was getting introduced in the next episode because he was like, hey, sorry, I won't be able to make the first episode. I'm like, that's fine. We'll introduce you in the next one. But you guys got to the cabin by that point. And I was like, shoot, how are we going to get this guy to the cabin? And so we came up with this, basically we added this backstory last minute of Chauncey being Mike Foster's partner. And it's like, all right, he let you know to go there first. And that's how Chauncey first arrived. So that was a very last minute addition. That was after the first episode and before the second. We had decided that was going to be a thing.
Huh.
But Mike Foster, was just one of those NPCs that was a bit of a, I guess, GM insert, right, to keep the story moving along in the direction that I want it to.
Tutorial NPC.
Yeah, tutorial NPC, exactly. And like all good tutorial NPCs, he dies. But actually, he died a lot later than I was expecting him to, though, because I think we talked about that.
Nobody's dying when Emil's around.
Yeah.
Emil's going to go down before they do.
Yeah, we talked about that in the first retrospect, that he was expected to die to the dogs, but you guys forced him to stay alive. Or rather, Emil did specifically, because with all of that healing.
I hit him with literally everything I had.
Yeah.
I think I was empty by the end of that fight.
I feel like his survival to the end of that, though, was well worth it.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
because I wanted to give you guys a good payoff for that. Because obviously, I still wrote him out immediately afterwards when you guys immediately went in. So, just so I could, keep the story moving as I'd originally intended. However, I made sure to write him back in because I wanted to make sure you guys were rewarded for altering, the course that much and, actually protecting this NPC. So I thought that was worth a reward. And then I got to reintroduce him and we get that awesome dramatic moment where he confronts Katara and the party comes to her defense for the first time. And that kind of ended up being a neat beat that we got out of that. And then over the course down to his sacrifice at the very end.
It was essentially his sacrifice. Oh, what's up?
No, you go.
I was going to say it was his sacrifice and then Emil's reaction to Jack in his state that ended up really making Katara think at the end of like, why am I here with this stuff? Why am I with this company? And
yeah, that was a huge turning point for that character.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
All in all, like, his death was the reason why Chauncey stayed as a character, gave him relevancy to fight the bioterrorism as well.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Because there was that whole scene with, like when he got back to the police station.
Yep, with the chief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was that's the thing about role-playing games. Getting back to that again, those little miracles of storytelling. Because I intended to just have Mike Foster guide you guys there and then just get off immediately. But what I didn't know was that if you guys saved him, which you did, that he would have that emotional impact on the campaign that was needed to get it started. And he ended up being kind of your guys' Agent Coulson in a sense, of the one that kind of brings the party together or gives relevance to all of the story threads, right? Because now all of a sudden he has this adopted daughter that's just up for grabs, and now Chauncey kind of has, Chauncey and Emil both had a role in basically becoming father figures to her and taking care of her after that. So yeah, that worked out really well.
That's not the way you had it planned.
Yeah, Emil was going to be her adopted father.
Yeah, just Emil though.
That's true.
That's true. Because as soon as you popped in, I was like, oh, I'm not touching it. Like if you're gonna go in, like I was already ready to have that whole conversation. I was like, hey, you're going for it. That's cool. Like that's your
Well, like
your
I
initiative.
only did it because I thought that was the only option. I didn't realize that you were going to be an option too. So I was just like, this is the only one that makes sense.
And that's the cool thing, because like it did make a lot more sense, because originally you weren't gonna be there, and Emil was gonna be the one to have to take care of her. And then when you introduced yourself as like a family friend, that made a whole lot more sense to have you come in and have Chauncey, you know, just slide into the father role while already having known her.
Yeah, it worked out. Well, and there was also, well, we'll get to that in, well, I guess we could go ahead and talk about it now during the Raccoon City arc, when that moment finally happens that she officially gets adopted.
Oh, I was gonna say real quick,
Mhm.
because I heard Sleepy was saying something at one point.
Oh,
I already forgot.
no.
Oh,
Rip. Sorry. But when that moment happened that Archaea finally officially got adopted, you had brought up that there is like this weird kind of pseudo-psychological motivation for it that kind of led Chauncey to that moment, which was the fact that Chauncey himself was adopted.
Yeah.
And that was that. I thought, like, as soon as we made that connection, all of a sudden it felt like it made a lot more sense. Because not only was he the family friend, but he also had this that imperative. Just he knows what position she's in. So that worked out. That worked out quite beautifully.
Solid role play without even trying.
It's the name of the game. So, speaking of Archaea, I suppose the time is right, and I have a document open here. I have several documents open for my reference here, but there's this one that's kind of infamous that I've referenced a few times, called the Secret Histories document, which basically has the complete continuity written down for all of the main characters, essentially the starting characters in the campaign, after I'd received their backstories and everything, just going through and setting straight what happened what happened in their backstories, what actually happened, because you guys gave me the detail from your characters' perspectives, and then I set out to make something of a complete record, as well as this document actually continuously was updated throughout the campaign, just because of new developments and stuff that happened. So there's a lot to reference on here, and I talked about possibly sharing it after the campaign was done. I don't know if I will publicly, but I don't know. Maybe I'll still let you all players see it, but I'll at the very least be reading from it and referencing it a lot tonight. So there will be a lot that everybody can see. But I think it would be a good idea to kind of go through here and establish Archaea's actual origins, because now that we're after the fact, kind of setting the record straight of what her origins look like. And a lot of this was also just trying to make sense of the backstory she gave me, which was a little windy. And so I was like, okay, something happened there. I'd need to unpuzzle it and figure it out. So basically, here's how it goes. Here's Archaea's origins, as even unbeknownst to Archaea herself. So it starts in July of 1998 at the Arklay cabin facility. Albert Wesker had long been searching for a cure to Yuko's degenerative disease, which is cystic fibrosis. I think Emil actually figured that one out at one point in the campaign.
Yeah.
In the superior genetics of Yuko's daughter, Archaea. However, Oswell E. Spencer caught wind of this child and desired her for his own eugenics experiments. Unwilling to hand her over, Wesker and his assistant, Dr. Raphael Simmons, orchestrate a plan. And during a routine checkup, Dr. Simmons injects Archaea with nanomachines that allow her location to be tracked. Then he Wesker and the security staff carry out a performance in which Simmons pretends to help Archaea escape before being gunned down by security. And Archaea is then brought to Wesker's office before being released into the city. Archaea is declared dead and disposed of on Umbrella's records, deterring Spencer's pursuit, while the nanomachines guarantee that she can be found and retrieved at a later time. The theatrics were arranged to present a false scenario for Archaea, while also making her believe that the only person she cared about was dead, so she would have no incentive to return and endanger the charade. So then later, around July 25th of 1998, however, the mansion incident throws a wrench in this plan. With Wesker presumed dead, Simmons becomes the highest authority in the Arclay cabin. Archaea is out in the world, while the only person who wanted to later retrieve her is no more. So Simmons reluctantly continues to supervise the cabin facility for the next few months before choosing a successor and retiring. So that brings us to September to December of 1998, which is about when the campaign starts.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, Dr. Simmons becomes aware that the rogue USS operative Aiden is now seeking vengeance on those involved in Project Samson. So he flees Raccoon City and goes into hiding just before the outbreak reaches epidemic levels. And being well acquainted, Simmons and Walker had shared knowledge of a safe house in Chicago. And in fleeing from Aiden, Simmons retreated there, where Walker had also gone into hiding as a fugitive from Umbrella. And that's when they hooked up, and that's basically when the Manifold sort of began.
Oh, fanfic.
Not that kind of hooked up. Get your head out of the gutter.
You can't prove it.
It's not canon.
It is
It'll
now.
be when someone writes it.
You gotta read that note in the later storylines.
Whole nother campaign about that. No. So, that was basically the origins of Archaea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was sort of the plan, was to kind of track her down. And
So did they
That never
know
ended up
the entire
following.
time
did they know the entire time?
where she was?
Well, that was Wesker's doing. Well, rather, and Simmons. And Simmons had actually shared that information with Walker. And I believe, yeah, they were basically keeping track of her and trying to decide on the right time to seize her. Which is part of how they knew when you guys went to the Lafayette facility. Which one
was that?
That was with the one with Aiden at the end of his story arc. The Beast. Where you guys raided the Lafayette facility, the one you went through, that was like all the puzzle rooms, and then you come back out while it's exploding and the G-Virus is chasing you.
Yeah.
Where you find Simmons at the very bottom. When you guys went to that facility, that was why there was that terminal you found at the beginning that said, hey, Archaea's here. The bait's been set, Walker's coming. And that was when, obviously you left Aiden to fight him. But the reason they knew she was there was because they were keeping track of her.
So they can track her the entire time, and they knew she was heading that direction.
Exactly, yeah. They saw she was heading for that facility, and they're like, hey, this might be the opportunity. And that's why Walker went to that facility. But then ultimately,
That makes sense, because that was actually one of the things that I was kind of curious about at the time. But then I retroactively, when I found out that Walker was kind of all knowing, I was like, oh, Walker knew.
Yeah. Now that's the thing. Even if he couldn't track her, yeah, they're probably, he's got access to enough hacking and surveillance and whatnot to pretty easily find people if he wants to. So, and that was kind of the fun of that character, right? There was that kind of all-knowing aspect where it would be easy to explain how he acquires any information.
Yeah.
Because he's just in that business. So, let's see. Any other curiosities from the first arc?
When did the first arc stop?
That was the 5th episode. You guys fought the Tyrant, which was Jack Carmine, and then escaped the facility. That's where it ended.
I don't think so, because that wasn't actually that many sessions.
Yeah, it wasn't that many. Well, I do also have, recorded in the Secret Histories, the story behind Jack Carmine. And
all Emil's buddies?
Yeah, all of Emil's buddies. And
how
what
they
led
betrayed
up to there. They didn't see it as betraying him in their eyes.
But they betrayed him.
Well, I mean, where is that now? Who's the real betrayer?
I mean, Emil figured out really quickly that that's just how you get ahead in life.
Well, I suppose maybe we should delve into that category then, or territory.
Yeah, what happened after
Operation Greenhouse?
Operation Greenhouse, unnamed Latin American country.
Well, I've got that here too, actually. You want to know about Operation Greenhouse?
Where was it?
Well, I think you found that out at one point in the campaign, didn't you?
Did I? I don't remember. Argentina?
Yeah, I think, I want to say Scott told you. I don't remember.
I don't know. Oh, no, I think I remember. I think I did know. I don't remember now. But I think he knew because Walker told him what happened.
Yeah, true. It might have been something to that effect. I don't remember. I feel like you did learn at some point. Well, either way, here's the full story. This was in 1976 to 77. Operation Greenhouse, a classified joint Army umbrella testing site for herbicides, is set up at a facility outside San Javier, Argentina. In April of 1977, in the midst of the Dirty War, the facility is attacked by left-wing guerrillas who mistake it for one of the military regime's detention camps. So that's what happened at Operation Greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
It was essentially just, wrong place, wrong time. But it was so secretive that they're like, this must be the government that we're rebelling against, because it was in the midst of the Dirty War was a kind of civil war in Argentina that was going on during that time. Interesting.
So Umbrella actually had nothing to do with it.
Nope, they didn't. I think Emil went all conspiracy theory, and implicating that, or implying that Umbrella had some hand in the downfall of that facility. But no, it was
because
bad luck.
Yeah, because the idea was, I think I set that it was implied there was funny business, and then because I knew that there was going to be a umbrella herbicide thing coming up later, so I was like, Umbrella stole that from there.
Well, they did steal that from there.
Well, yeah, but I was like, and that's the attack to that was the cover-up operation where it was just like, we're gonna kill all the U.S. soldiers at this operation, and anybody who knew Umbrella was involved, because anybody who would survive would be all implicated in this top secret operation, and they wouldn't be able to say anything about it.
What were you saying, Mel?
And then I was like, and then Katara later goes and gets this herbicide stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's just like, oh, all right, y'all want me to work on something? Sure.
Well, and that was an interesting tie-in I found in Emil and Katara's backstories. It was because Emil was working with Umbrella on this herbicide business, and Katara, this was completely by chance, Mel. You wrote into her backstory that she helped create V-Jolt from Resident Evil 1. And then I'd written it in extra. I think I'd given you that hint after the campaign started, but before it became relevant. I was like, I sent you a message at one point just saying, by the way, you would know that the research that you used as the foundation of V-Jolt came from something called Operation Greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And then that got to play out in that very dramatic scene that I really loved, in
where Emil pulls her to the side.
Yeah, where Emil pulls her to the side in the university and explains his history.
It's like, I was there.
And you were like, wait a minute, I know this.
Yeah.
Because that was just a completely coincidental backstory crossover opportunity that you'd both written into your backstories.
Yeah. Oh man,
It's
so cool.
amazing that people can put that much effort into it. Achievement unlocked. Shortest backstory.
I forget.
I don't
It
know.
was
You
one
might
of
have
those.
competition with Neri about shortest backstory.
Oh, trust me, Chauncey's is shorter.
Oh no.
Yeah. Mine was almost practically created for me.
I was gonna say I'm guessing it was something along the lines of Raph, I want to play.
It was that. Remember that pilot episode?
Yeah.
We built a character off of that.
Yeah. It's like, wait, he's got a brother. Wait, they have a sister.
That was literally the first time I did a backstory was his brother, and then it's like you gotta put more detail into that.
The sister.
He's like, try detail, and I was like, oh. I gave it a little bit, and he's like, all right, I'm done. I'll write you a backstory at this point.
To be fair, that did give me a good starting point.
Yeah, I didn't understand because I was like, I just want him to be a normal guy that doesn't have like any like traumatic reason to be fighting. Just I want him to create his backstory in the main story kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he ended up becoming probably the most traumatized character.
Yeah.
That's true. Next to Kevin, of course.
They're like head to head at the finish line.
I mean, Chauncey broke himself more than he was broken by other people.
Wait, what?
Okay, that's fair. Like Kevin was always wrong place, wrong time, and just like poor choice in friends. but Chauncey was just like, I'm going. Oh shit.
I forget. Did Kevin get to see his father get skewered?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there when that happened.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right in front of him.
And then
right.
And then Chauncey killed his dad.
Yeah, that's true. There goes Chauncey traumatizing himself.
Oh man.
Gotta do it, guys. Gotta do it.
Yep. That was a pretty sweet moment. There was just like, guys, this is my dad.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, I love
Coward.
that.
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
That was
So-
also. I was gonna say that was also around the time where I figured out after the fact that we could have just blew out the wall.
Oh,
and
yeah.
left.
Yeah, he had them grenade launchers.
Oh man.
It was all about resource management at a certain point. Well, I don't remember if I talked about the alternative version of that encounter that could have happened when we did the retrospect on Arc 4. Did I talk about that?
I don't think so.
Well, if not,
There's an
then
alternative version?
I'll get to it. Yeah, of that. There was an alternative version of that encounter that could have happened, but if not, we'll get to that in when we get there here. But let me finish what I was saying about Emil's choice of friends.
There's more? Oh.
Well, that was just telling you what happened in Operation Greenhouse. We're talking about Arc 1, and what happened
That's
big
true,
there
'cause
was Jack
Because
Carmine.
then after that, everyone goes their own way.
So from 78 to 97, the survivors of Operation Greenhouse, Sergeant Major Emil Johansson, Private First Class Edward Lopez, Second Lieutenant Scott Muller, and Specialist Jack Carmine, retire from military service and go their separate ways, keeping in touch only by letters. Scott Muller finds himself unable to adjust to civilian life and re-enters combat as a private contractor without telling the others. In 1994, he is hired into Umbrella's paramilitary through the UBCS. He grows fascinated with BOWs and takes every opportunity to work near them, hoping one day to volunteer for experiments in order to become the ultimate soldier. And then in 1998, in August, Umbrella tasks Muller with bringing in subjects of high physical fitness as candidates for Project Tyrant. In private letters to Jack Carmine and Edward Lopez, he invites them to join him in working with Umbrella. Desperate for better employment and frustrated with life as a veteran, Carmine accepts. When introduced to BOWs, he also becomes fascinated and, as Muller hoped, volunteers for Project Tyrant. In September, Carmine is moved to the cabin facility in the Arklay Mountains and undergoes the transformation process. However, shortly thereafter, Elliot Walker infiltrates the facility, steals its data, and releases the T-virus. The facility goes into lockdown and remains untouched until Grimson sends Katara to recover its data 2 weeks later.
I forget canonically how long ago, or rather, how big was the time span between the outbreak in the labs versus the outbreak in the city?
It was pretty much immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
Because you guys got back into the city. I don't remember the precise dates now. I would have at the time, because I had a very acute knowledge of the Raccoon City timeline while I was running those first 2 arcs. I'd researched it pretty heavily to make it as close to canon as possible. So I don't have the exact dates off the top of my head now, but basically when you guys got out of the cabin, I think there was only 1 or 2 days of rest before you guys started seeing stuff.
Yeah.
Which is what happened at the hospital
true.
where you encountered that liquor. So
So basically, like,
around the 27th.
yeah, roundabouts. Because it was just a few days prior to things hitting the fan when the cabin, when you guys went into the cabin facility.
so like, Carmine was doing Umbrella stuff for those months that Emil had lost contact, but like basically the day before Emil lands, he gets turned into a tyrant.
Well, 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before, okay.
2 weeks before, yeah. Yeah, which I believe that was
But, like,
about
very,
the time
very,
frame
like,
that you
that
lost
was, like,
contact
very-
with them.
What was that?
I believe that was around the time frame that you lost contact with them. It was 2 weeks
No, 'cause-
beforehand.
No, because they kept letters monthly.
Yeah, so that would have been like the last month would have, I suppose, been the last time you could tell.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's what happened to Carmine. And of
Yeah.
course, Edward Lopez didn't get involved, but he was offered.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what they were talking about in when Emil, there was that scene after the first
At
arc.
the bar.
Yeah, at the bar where you meet with them and tell them about what happened in Raccoon City. And they go outside.
Poison.
Yeah, poison. Scott Moeller and Lopez go outside and exchange a few words amongst themselves out of your earshot. I think you tried to perception it, but didn't quite get it. And that's what they were talking about. Was Lopez was like, "Yo, Scott, do you know about this?" Because Scott was kind of keeping you out of the loop at that time. Basically, because he thought Emil was too idealistic and definitely wouldn't be on board.
Oh yeah, he would have killed him.
Yeah, at that time he would have. Fast forward all those years later, and he's like, "We can make this work in a different
Well,
sort of
I mean,
way."
fast forward all those years later, I was like, I'm gonna kill you. Wait, hold on.
That's true, yeah. So, I think that covers everything for Arc 1. Arc 2 brings us to the Raccoon City incident. So, any questions or points of discussions there?
Man, did I do a god-awful job at playing Muriel.
That was her first appearance. Yeah, at this point we see the first appearance of Kevin and Nuria.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first time ever playing a tabletop.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you had you had a
my
lot to
first
learn.
Resident Evil experience.
That too. I still can't believe how little you know about Resident Evil to this day, and yet you were a part of this campaign. That blows my mind.
You know what I'm happy about?
Huh.
I'm happy that we were able to give you this experience, and I'm happy that Katara was able to give you the experience of a super tyrant.
yeah, that's right. That
So
was
like, here you go.
I'm curious.
burn the body, turns into super tyrant.
Where was that super tyrant hiding? Where did it go?
Yeah, because you guys came back and it wasn't there,
Yep.
and then later,
It went to the mall.
yeah, I went shopping. Later, Nuria has to battle it while she tries to, battle it. She runs away from it as it's
Probably
wrecking
the only
havoc.
fight. Probably the only fight in the game that somebody ran away from.
That might be true. You guys didn't run away a whole
Yeah.
lot. Retreat was not in their vocabulary.
We also didn't try to evade a lot of it either.
Nah.
Like,
Yeah.
no, this thing dies.
I felt the same experience as Nuria did in that instant.
He was like, what's going on?
Oh yeah, because that thing
I have no idea what's happening.
it basically just Kool-Aid manned its way through the wall, and then
As it does.
started cutting down.
Whiskers, no.
I remember we rolled a stealth check, and I don't remember who failed, but someone failed.
Yeah, it started
And
cutting
it
down
just
the
burst
university
its way through the
students.
wall.
Mm-hmm. Started cutting them down, and Nuria sees them all getting chopped in half by its big claws, and she's just like, "Nope."
So I wanna hear from
Sean
Sleepy. How
almost
did that?
died.
How did that all end? I forget.
Helicopter.
Yeah, there was and this was a thing. I'd never played the Outbreak games, but I had to get some research on them when doing the story
Ooh.
arc because there was a lot of that there. And apparently, a big part of that there was like some members of the Raccoon City Fire Department.
Yes.
In those games. Well, and also they bring that back as well in Resident Evil Resistance. One of the characters is a member of that fire department. One of the playable characters. So basically, the fire department had done a number of things during the outbreak, but they were also running evacuation helicopters in a few instances. So the fire department was bringing an evac chopper to the university on that night when Nuria escaped with the other survivors. It was basically just Sean and Elza were the only ones who got out alive.
Ooh.
That's rough.
Yeah, all those other
That's
students
tough.
you guys saw all died.
And it was really funny because, like, as the helicopter was taking off, this tyrant like runs across the roof, jumps, and like latches onto the helicopter. And so you had Nuria like blasting it, I think with the spark shot. Yeah, she was blasting with the spark shot, and it almost failed I think it was a strength save. And then
Yeah,
he just had, I think it was either Elza using Nuria's flashlight or it was Sean with his own flashlight and flashed it, and it failed the save and fell.
yeah. And that thing was dragging the helicopter down too, since it was so heavy. And so it was like
Yeah.
got off the rooftop and then it jumped on and started dragging it down to the courtyard. But yeah, then it got flashlight to the face and failed its save, so it got stunned and just dropped the entire height down to the courtyard. So that's probably a super tyrant that somebody else had to deal with the rest of it.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
can imagine, like,
I was gonna say, to be fair, in Outbreak, one of the final bosses for one of the characters in there is a super tyrant.
maybe that was him.
So I
They have to
mean,
deal with it.
that's the final fight.
I was gonna say, just like, I can imagine somebody else's campaign. They're just walking down the street and there's just like the super tyrant just land right in front of them.
Yeah, it's just like,
The
oh,
helicopter
I
flying
missed the
away.
helicopter. And then they chop this tyrant. It's like, oh, shoot.
I was like, what the fuck?
I wasn't prepared for this.
Like, oh no, that's the evac chopper, tyrant. What?
Oh, yeah.
Did that tyrant just jump out of a helicopter?
Why is the evac chopper dropping tyrants on me?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any other questions about.
I think I had one. I don't remember what it was for. So we got that resolved with the information that was stolen out of the vehicle.
Out
and
of
I
the
think we
Hummer.
got, yeah, and also out
Well,
of
yeah, I could
somebody got
give
pickpocketed.
Yeah. There was Katara got pickpocketed by Moonlight. He took the Arclay cabin data from you, I want to say it was, and also stole the Spectre
Jank.
virus. Yeah, Jank prototype sample that was in the Hummer. In Chauncey's Hummer. He broke into that and stole that. And you guys got that information filled in, but I actually do have a little bit more written in the Secret Histories document here.
Oh, yes.
Well, Katara has a long Secret Histories document since hers was kind of being updated as the campaign went along. With basically this became like a new backstory element, was this jank that you created back in Raccoon City.
I'm excited.
Where you inadvertently created a new and very powerful virus. So
Doing Umbrella's work. I like it.
So,
Let's see.
no. I'm gonna let you
So
go
did
through
Walker.
this one before I ask.
All right. Yeah. So
I remember what I wanted to ask. So
All right. All right, I'll go ahead and give you this selection then. So this was in September of 1998. This is during the Raccoon City incident. The USS discovers David and Alicia Oswald's long history of whistleblowing. Noticing William Birkin in a similar predicament, the Oswalds aid him in orchestrating the outbreak at Nest before fleeing. James Grimson and his unit, the USS Echo Team, are assigned to assassinate all whistleblowers before they can leave the city, including the Oswalds. While the others search for the senior Oswalds, Moonlight tails the party. And while the party heads into Nest, he plants a tracking device under the bumper of Chauncey's Hummer. You guys would have been able to find that if you were searching specifically for anything of the sort. And when they head into the Raccoon University, he takes the opportunity to thoroughly search the Hummer. He finds the hidden viral sample that Katara modified, but not the Arclay cabin data, which he was tasked with finding. So he pursues the party into the university and steals the USB drive from Katara's pocket, while also discovering the whereabouts of her parents. Moonlight then regroups with Echo Team. They drop off the cabin data and viral sample at a pickup point for Hunk's Alpha Team before they head to City Hall in search of the senior Oswalds. Hunk escapes the city with Katara's sample, the cabin facility data, and a G-virus sample.
Of course, Hunk escapes. He's invincible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if he stayed around, he probably would have gotten thrown off a roof.
Chauncey don't care if you're
Yep.
Ken.
Get
You're getting
off of that
tossed.
roof.
He would have tossed the Grim Reaper off the roof.
Can you die?
We about to find out.
Yeah, so basically, during the fourth Survivor, unbeknownst to the rest of the Resi community, Hunk has also got the Spectre virus and the Arclay cabin data like bouncing around one of his bags.
Oh yeah. I'm actually curious because the jank was just completely accidental.
Hmm.
But can Katara replicate the jank again?
I think you lost the notes that you had on that. But then again, it was a bit of a failed experiment.
It was a failed experiment
Because it
so
wasn't what you were
just like-
targeting to begin with.
Yeah.
Fail on purpose.
Like, could she just make the jank again but fail on purpose? Because
I mean, you did
Gotta
it
fail in the
once,
same way.
but it's been so many years, I don't know if you would be able to replicate it precisely without probably Spectre virus sample for reference.
Mhm.
She would probably need one of those to replicate it precisely, because those were very particular circumstances that led to that accident. And so to
Mhm.
recreate that exact mistake, probably wouldn't be able to do it the exact same way another time after all these years, because it's been
But I
more
could
than
just
10
make a
years
whole
since
new
then.
virus.
You could, in theory, you could just create a whole new
not
one.
stopping you. You know how to.
The buff
It's true.
virus.
Well, yeah, that's the thing about Katara. She knows how. But the
sad
question
buff.
is, does she want to?
Yeah, I think so.
I have.
Or does that just make
Anyway.
her become what people think she is?
But here's the problem: if Katara starts making viruses, someday she's gonna get a knock on her door.
Won't
She's friend with the president. It's fine.
Yeah.
be the president
Yeah.
this time, though.
Until
Well-
that knock on the door is Chauncey, and it's because of all the bioterrorism that's going on with that virus.
You know what?
Just-
You ever seen this virus before?
The thing is, though, that Chauncey knows that Katara can fly.
That is true.
Oh, that's true.
That is true. So, no rooftop for you.
I mean, it would just be, can you fall?
Defeats purpose. Damn.
Or does that mean no rooftop for you, or more rooftop for you?
That means I bring her down into a sewer. Can you swim now? I knew you used to be able to.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's true. She can
Time
still...
to inject the dirus.
Can you swim now? Yes, I swam after you when you were getting dragged over.
I mean, I don't know about the wings being a thing back then. Maybe you gave up swimming for wings.
That's true.
As far as
That's
Chauncey
true.
knows. He's still trying to figure it all out.
Gravity, no. Water, yes.
There you go.
As long as we don't play in a magnetic room, we're good.
We need to
Water,
figure this out. I'll make a map for a battle royale. There we go. We'll settle it. No. Well, I mean, we could if you guys want. If you guys want, I am totally down to host a battle royale. But
I'm
battle
good.
royales.
I'm gonna get whooped. Because
Really?
Oh,
Oh, it's
you
gonna take us
points?
a long time to whoop
No,
you. A really long time.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
You can heal.
Chauncey over here.
If we don't kill you in the first round,
But that's
Chauncey-
the negotiations of it, right? If you guys know Chauncey's a threat, so it's like, do you guys gang up to take out Chauncey at the start?
Here's the thing, Chauncey, especially if this was going to be like all of us level 20 based, right? Since we're pretty much already there anyway. This person's going to have infinite ammo and a bunch of action surge economy that comes in and just hardcore damage. So like Katara has a lot of health. He could probably knock that health out within the first round. And it's like, if there's one person Katara fears in terms of a fight, it is Chauncey.
My
That's a-
determination.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
Like, we have
that
to
too.
kill you in the first round, because otherwise, you're gone.
That's why we're locked in our room and you can't leave.
I have
Battle
but
Royale.
one question.
The cage
Mhm.
match, boys. Let's go.
Question.
Do I get to play Enyo and Nuria teamed up against everyone else?
No,
No.
Enyo mod.
No!
Enyo mod Gatling
Enyo
gun with a
Tara!
Gatling gun on the Vanguard mode.
No!
GG
Oh,
Katara.
disgusting.
Enyo Tara!
Disgusting. I don't like that.
All years. Wow!
No,
The
Katara would be like, please, not another Gatling gun. Walks inside, no, door opens, explodes. Oh, okay, we're good. Okay, ow. All right, guys, I'm going inside. There's another one.
Yeah, that was. I love how you guys were careful on a number of doors in the Manifold Tower, just not that one.
That's the only one.
I think I remember too. Like, I was going to say something, and then somebody walked in. I was like, I'm not going in.
I'm not going in. Oh,
And you just see the explosions and the bullets, and you're just like, oh, there it is.
Like, Mr. G sitting outside there. I don't remember what he was doing out there. I think Chauncey was still like all messed up or something. Like, Mr. G's sitting out there. He just hears an explosion. It's like, that sounds about right.
All right, so we covered a number of things in Raccoon City.
I wanted to
Oh,
ask.
yeah,
I think
question.
I don't remember if this was if we talked about this at the time. There was a check Katara made when she first injected the virus, or it wasn't a check. I think it was just like a roll of some kind to see what would happen.
I'm
was
trying to
it?
remember that
Was
one.
it a con? Was it a con check that I did?
I don't know, because I remember when it was first happening, you made a
Roll
check.
to determine virus?
Or wait, no. Was it
No, because
wisdom?
she knew the virus.
Was it?
When we were all in that room and like,
I have a feeling it was either con or wisdom or one of the two. I think it was more. I think it might have been con, only for the sole purpose of she might have knocked out during the process and not gotten back up. I
can't remember. I can't remember any role in particular when she ingested the virus to become evolved for the first time.
Yeah.
Because there were pre-written cutscenes for that, and so either way, that was going to play out the way it was.
yeah, that's what I was
And
wondering.
I don't
about
remember if I did a roll to determine anything else. Oh man, I don't remember precisely. But that's not ringing any bells, so I don't know what I might have been planning.
All right. Because I don't know if we know what the result of that was.
Mm.
Because I remember, like,
But
after the roll was made, you did the cutscene directly afterwards.
And I remember after the Arc 5 retrospect, I did show the alternate cutscene that could have happened. Yes. I read.
Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, I read the alternate cutscene, which was if she used the jank instead, because we'd had those discussions of, okay, you've got that, but Mel wasn't satisfied with it, so he wanted to peruse the Nest facility for another virus to see if he could try again. And so it could have been either of the two if you didn't succeed in making that second virus.
Yeah, because I remember I wrote you, I was like, so I could take this right now, but I was like, I want to wait because I want to see if there's another virus, and I want to see if we can succeed with the next one. If we can't succeed with the next one, I'm going to take the jank.
Mm.
And then we succeeded with the next one, so I was like, okay, we're going to keep the jank, but we're going to take the good one.
And then the jank got stolen.
Yup, attack and return of the jank later.
Mm-hmm. It's out there in the world now.
It is. That's something I got to talk to you about later.
Got to find all the jank and
because that's downtime stuff.
It's time for a recall.
Product recall.
Excuse me.
May cause incorporealness.
I kind of need this.
This doesn't belong to you.
When for the Raccoon,
30,000.
the Raccoon City story arc, though, how did you actually expect the original time we faced off against the Grimson group to play out? Did you expect it to play out similar to what it was, or was it a complete curveball?
Like in what way? In terms of the combat and whatnot?
Yeah, like the way that the combat unfolded. Like, were you expecting more death?
I don't know if I was expecting full-on death, but I knew it was going to be a really tough fight because they were. This was your guys' first time essentially facing off against intelligent enemies, which was very interesting and very different. So I knew I was going to be able to play them tactically. I knew I was going to be able to play them as a team. And also they just had a lot of advantages. They were really tough enemies. And it was basically like a party versus party fight. So I knew it was going to be a hard encounter. It was very deadly. I don't know if I entirely expected you guys to split up so much. And I think that really kind of messed with their dynamic as well, since they're agents. And they kind of got to rely on each other a little bit. Because I think Allie ran someone around in the garage for a while on her own, so it was like they were separated a good bit. So,
see, I think I remember it was Moonlight.
Mm-hmm, yeah, Moonlight got
fisticuff of Moonlight.
Well, and then the zombies started coming in because basically, I think I talked about this in the retrospect. Then the sort of the inspiration for that fight was a kind of Operation Raccoon City style PvP kind of thing, where the people are fighting each other, but Raccoon City is still going on, so you've got other monsters pouring into the fight while they're trying to fight each other. That was part of the influence there. So I loved that kind of imagery, and that they had sort of established in that jank game, and the idea of, like, you know, interacting with the zombies while you're trying to fight people, how you could like take them as human shields and stuff. So we had the zombies pouring in towards the end of that fight, and I knew that would mix things up because that's just anything goes. And I think the zombies straight up killed one of the Echo guys as well.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he just got eaten on his way out.
He just got grabbed. He got dead.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
Oh yeah,
that was probably one of the dopest.
Grab on hit. That's insane.
Yeah, one of the best, I think, finishing blows was the wombo combo you guys did on Grimson. That one's still one of the most memorable ones in the campaign. Yeah.
I know I killed him, but I didn't want to steal the emotional impact of Katara killing. So
yeah, and that's great. That's the kind of teamwork that made it awesome, because there's the room for that in the that's what I love so much about Mercer's how do you want to do this formula, is the game just goes completely cinematic for a moment, and the players can just say how it happens. I love that. You guys just get to dictate. So it's like, yeah, Chauncey finished the last of his hit points, but how the kill goes, you could kind of dictate that. You could share in the glory a bit. So that was awesome. It was good. Yeah, that was a very memorable
that not
kill.
Knowing how to GM backdoor GMing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I feel like it was like I have those impulses throughout the whole story. It's like, well, I could just take the glory of this, or I can help someone else enjoy the glory of actually needing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and that's you did storyteller.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's you got like the Rambo style like gutting kill, and then as he's bleeding out, he rolls out onto the street and gets blown up by Katara. That was awesome.
And I will say that is the first time Katara got shot.
Oh yeah,
in the campaign, because she had never been. She'd been bitten
was just
by
some
dogs,
scientist.
bitten by stuff, and then she was just like, "Oh, okay. Well, they can't bite me or anything." Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's a gun.
Chauncey and Evo just like, we've been shot way too many times to count.
That's true. Chauncey and Emil both. Yeah. We're the only ones who dealt with fighting people before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great though. And well, there was a couple memorable kills because obviously we still reference freaking I think it was
Can You Fly?
Red Falcon to this day.
Oh yeah, Can You Fly?
Which again, those little gameplay miracles. That was not a fudged number. You literally dealt the fall damage dealt the exact number of hit points she had left. That was not fudged whatsoever. That was awesome, and she just smushed into the car.
Yep.
And then I tried to do this, like after watching somebody die from fall damage, I go, oh, there's the fastest way to the street.
That's right.
Tacos on pole. Like, oh well. I went down. I think I went down like twice or three times just in that fight. Like,
oh yeah, you did, because Emil kept getting you, having to get you back up.
I remember how much of a struggle it was being so vulnerable, and then I look at myself now as Chauncey and go, nothing can kill me. Like it can, but like I've tried. it's a struggle.
That's how I feel with Katara whenever I look back at her from the beginning to now, because the build just went from I'm a caster, and I need to stay in the back and all this other stuff to all right, so I have a stun baton, I have a grenade launcher, and then I have this assault rifle, and then I have a lot of HP and some crazy AC. And it doesn't, like, it's one of those things where she's gotten hurt. Like, okay, so the later on when we fought against a room, that was like the most damage I think I've ever had Katara
that was the most
taken.
damage the whole party had taken as a whole.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And it was one of those things. And I remember
That's true. Up until
I remember Nut, you were saying how you needed that. Was it that one or the one beforehand where you said you needed to just like go against something to feel like vulnerable or whatever?
Yeah, like I wanted something to put me back in my place.
Because oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
And it's just that feeling of not, like, I almost feel like I was cheating almost the GM because I felt like I was indestructible, and it's like no matter what you throw at me, it's going to be pathetic. And then like I needed taught a lesson that no, you're still able to be killed, bro.
Yeah, and you got dangerously close with that giant at the end there.
I feel the same way. I feel the same way with Katara when it came to the room. Like, it was definitely one of those moments where I sat there and I was looking at like how much damage was coming out, what was happening, and I was just like, wow, I can be hurt very bad.
Oh yeah,
I needed this.
yeah, that was a tough encounter. And see that, yeah, but I think the two of you very much got well into that kind of unkillable territory very fast, because, and that's the thing about 5th edition in general, is that the higher levels, player characters get pretty darn powerful, generally speaking. Even the, you know, obviously there's the squishies like the wizards and stuff in regular 5e, or the scientists and civilians in our case, but yeah, they still have a great deal of capability, so they kind of make up for it. But yeah, 5th edition scales crazily in terms of power, just because there's so much.
5th edition, as being a very hero-centric game, as part of its design, it is hard to die. There are so many gates to dying that, in comparison to previous versions of the game and maybe other games as well, there are so many times where you can, it gets to the point where you could die, or like you would have died, that there's like, okay, now there's another gate that you have to get through before you actually die. Okay, now you have to get through another gate before you actually die.
And then after you die, you can still get revived within the right window.
Because it's like, because of that, yeah, when you're a low level, after a certain point before somebody gets revivify is the only time that in proper 5e that you actually have a chance of dying and not coming back.
Or if your cleric just isn't around at the right time.
It's true. But because like after a certain point, it gets to, it's like, all right, if you go down to 0, get healed, because somebody's gonna have some sort of healing potion or healing spell just like ready to go, because you're not hurting for spell slots. Or what if you do die, somebody can revivify, stabilize, or something else to get you back up. And then if you die, you have to wait like 10 days before revived stops working. And you have to wait until wish.
Yeah.
But as I was gonna say, the thing too in Resident Roleplay is in the system, because everybody has firearms and everybody has ranged weapons, that's another layer that is added on top, where we can kite, which is not possible for a fighter to do unless they have like a longbow build, which isn't as good as like a sword and shield, or
the firearms offset the balance a good bit. It was something I had to get used to in the designing this, because obviously I could do proper counterbalancing and it still works out in terms of how much you guys get hit. However, in terms of damage output, it's completely different, because this party, because of firearms, just has a scale of damage output that's like a few levels ahead at all times for the player characters.
And because darn near all weapons are ranged, it allows for a lot more positioning options that you don't get in traditional 5e.
Yeah, exactly. That's the ramifications of doing a modern setting like Resident Evil.
Yeah.
So all those things I had really hard to get used to. Yeah, it does get really hard to die, especially when you start, you know, the power creep is what it was.
It's like a power just like it's a power jump scare.
Yeah, power jump scare. That's what happened to Chauncey.
It's just like, wait, well, hold on, what happened? What?
But I'm glad in the final battles, the last two, you know, the big climactic battles with the Archaea Chamber and with Walker, managed to give you guys a good solid challenge even at those epic levels.
Yeah, because that was with everybody being on the same level, because we weren't fighting zombies and other creatures that had to get into melee, which means we could kite. Everybody had ranged weapons. Everybody had like area on both sides that could just pass AC. There was a whole lot of options at that point. Everything was on the table, and a lot of that we didn't have. We didn't have too many fights where all of those things were in the same encounter.
All right, so we jumped ahead a little bit, but
we've been jumping
around.
Jumping around.
Oh yeah.
How about Arc 3, the Beast?
What happened between Aiden and Walker. I want to know what that fight looked like when we left.
Yeah, so here's what happened. Here's the truth.
That's the only question. That's the only question I wrote down.
I think that might be the only thing to talk about there, because everything else was pretty straightforward. There wasn't anything really going on behind the curtain besides that you guys didn't see, or have explained to you, or that we didn't cover in the previous retrospect. Like the stuff with the FBC and the conspiracies going on there. I think I explained in the retrospect. That was just my tie-in to Revelations. You could play that game if you want to know what was really going on with how he was manipulating Chauncey.
Good games.
Wait, it was manipulating me?
that was the Morgan Lansdale, the director of the FBC.
He got wrecked. He would have died had you let me kill him.
He would have died if I didn't not kill him.
If Cannon said I was allowed to kill him, I would have.
Cannon said no, not to one.
Cannon was like, please don't. Please don't.
That was just another one of those miraculous, fortuitous RPG moments where the one time you actually tried to lash out at him, you rolled a nat 1. It was just perfect. It preserved everything. So
it needed to happen that way.
It needed to, yeah. But great emotional moment. I actually still really love that scene too.
A lot of those stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
I feel like the quality of our emotion, because our chemistry is strong.
Mm-hmm.
Our quality and emotion dealt was relievingly good as well. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like you guys only got better in terms of chemistry and in terms of playing and developing character throughout the campaign. And I guess that just goes with the territory of getting more experience. So, let me explain to you what happened with Aiden and Walker. It was actually pretty straightforward, and actually I have a visual to go along with this.
What?
So, yeah, because I took a photo that night, and I finally get to show it.
Oh yeah!
Oh, that's right!
Oh, that's right!
20 or the roll 20 die. You're like, oh well, I rolled it. Here it is.
Yeah.
Take a picture for later.
Mm-hmm. So, here's basically what happened. After you guys left, Aiden stayed behind, knowing that Walker was the most dangerous person on his list, and basically fully understanding that he might not make it out of this fight alive. And so he sends the rest of you away.
Emil was gonna say.
Yeah, he stayed behind and basically waited in the bushes for the helicopter to arrive, and you guys heard it arrive as you were leaving.
Yep.
Helicopter arrived. Walker steps out. And I think if you look at the dates on his surgeries in the Manifold Tower, by that point he wasn't as powerful as he was when you guys fought him, but he still had a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and he was mostly there. CR25 maybe, in that kind of ballpark, instead of full CR30.
3-rounded.
Maybe you could have if you met him at that point with the levels that you had at the end. But so he comes face to face with Aiden. Aiden comes out of the bushes and ambushes him and starts blasting with all of his firepower. But that doesn't last very long, because basically after the first few shots, he comes out guns a-blazing. Walker just hits him with his control.
Was that a save that you rolled?
That was a save. That was the wisdom saving throw against his dominate BOW ability. Which is which he gets once per day, and that was one he used on Katara in both instances. Which is he could control creatures of certain infection origins. Only the infection origins that the Manifold has access to, he could control. And which obviously they have the T-virus and whatnot, so which is how he can control Katara with that ability. But he has to use a P30 device for anybody that's not infected with any of those sort of things. But Aiden was T-virus, so he could just reach out and control for that ability. And
then hit him with the P30 after?
Yeah. And, basically. Because that's very temporary. That one only lasts an hour at most. So, and of course, Aiden had the Crimson Rush, which as part of that, at his level, he was able to be immune to charms. However, Walker gave him that ability, so he knew how to subvert it as well. So that was basically ineffective versus Walker. He Because, I mean, Walker basically created Aiden, right? Or the beast as
he knows
was.
the off switch.
Yeah, he knows the off switch. He was the one leading all the experiments on him, and because Walker had basically was the head researcher on Project Samson, so he knew Aiden very well, and he knew his abilities. So basically, Aiden, with his stats and with Walker's DC, as you guys found out, Aiden basically had to roll an nat 20, which he did not. So this is what he rolled that night, which I've put up here on the screen. And it was a solid roll. And the 20 is actually right there on the side.
Oh, that's...
Oh, man.
But he did not
wait for it.
succeed.
There it is.
So basically, that was to determine whether he would come under Walker's control, and he would be mind controlled by Walker the next time you meet him, and essentially be a manifold operative from that point forward, or whether or not he would, grow privy to those tricks and probably be like, all right, I'll fight this out for a bit, but I need to retreat. Yeah, I'm not ready for this fight.
It's like, oh shit, that was bad.
Yeah, in which case, exactly, yeah, in which case you guys probably would have met him again a lot sooner.
Yeah. Not under control.
But not under control. Yeah, he would have had a chance of escaping.
So he probably would have been one of the ones, probably would have been the one to alert us, like, so there's something with Walker that's not good for me or for you.
It could have been some
yeah, he would have been able to
warning.
give you like early details about Walker. He's just like, okay, I fought him. These are the kinds of things he's capable of.
Oh man,
That would have been neat.
and the roll said, nah, we're
5% chance.
Yeah, 5% chance. So the odds, that would have been a very favorable outcome for you guys, but the odds were against it. So from the start, it was a pretty solid chance that he was going to get mind controlled if he encountered Walker.
Well,
I kind of wish. Actually, no, I do have a question regarding this. It's probably an easy one. So with the Katara got 2 rockets to shoot
Oh yeah.
at that final part. So like, had the first one been shot, had the first one been shot and we decided, oh, we're gonna stick around with Aiden for a little bit, would the second rocket still have been a thing? Could I have shot that helicopter and then just said bail?
Well, I suppose so. But you got 2 rockets because the first rocket didn't kill the boss you were fighting, and you needed the second rocket to finish it off. But if you took that second rocket and decided, nah, I'm not going to hit this boss, well, then you would actually have a number of other problems, because that boss was G-based and would have just kept getting back up until you blew it up entirely.
What if the first rocket did kill it?
And then there wouldn't have been a second rocket.
That's true. That's fair.
What if didn't use second rocket, used it on the helicopter, ran away, and then Walker had to deal with the
Yeah, just kept shooting it. Just kept shooting it.
You guys,
keeping it down.
You guys very heavily debated sticking around to face Walker.
So actually, that's an interesting point brought up by Sleepy at that moment, because let's say we would have knocked it down to 0 HP. I don't know. I don't know how long it would have been until it decided to mutate or get back. But like, instead of shooting the rocket, it was like, all right, we put it down. We're done. All right, everybody needs to leave. Now we're sticking around for this helicopter. Helicopter comes in. Boom. All right, everybody run. And then Walker is there and then has to fight G and Aiden.
G?
The G monster.
Yeah, the G monster, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
G wasn't
Aiden
there yet. He was in a different
time.
country.
Could that have been a possibility?
I mean, yeah, I suppose it would have. I mean,
Technically.
technically, yeah. Technically, what you described is possible. There's nothing that would have stopped you if you decided you were going to take that course of action. But your characters probably wouldn't have too much motivation to go that route. It's just like, wait a minute.
That's New Game Plus strats.
Yeah, that's New Game Plus strats. All right, so I think that's the major thing in Arc 3, yeah, and that's how that ended. And basically from that point onward, Aiden was just slave to Walker until you met him again. Which he very much didn't like. So
It was alright.
that brings us to Arc 4, the Felicianos. So this was Chauncey's personal arc, and quite an eventful one for how short it was. It was almost as short as the first arc,
Really?
and well, it was just like 4 episodes longer, I think. And yet there was so much going on in there. But at the outset, any immediate points of discussion or questions that you guys want to cover coming to mind?
All I have to say is poor Kevin.
Yeah,
For a lot of people.
he wasn't even there, and he got screwed in that arc.
Yeah.
Like that was a bad time for everybody. Just
Yeah.
in general. That was just a bad time.
Well, that was also a turning point for Katara. Watching everybody just get straight up decimated, especially Chauncey.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't she tried because I was able to fire off one thing on the rooftop and that was about it. And then just watching Chauncey get literally beat down, knocked out, and she's like basically the only one there at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stuck on the roof, Katara.
Last woman standing.
That
That was a TPK almost.
Right.
That was-
Effectively, that was a TPK. Yeah.
Effectively, yeah. Well,
effectively.
yeah, it was just Katara was the last one left who didn't get taken out in some way.
And that was I remember I had high emotions running at that time.
Oh, yeah.
too.
Well, it was interesting going back when I was editing the recap for that arc as well and rewatching that scene and editing it down. First off, it's a long sequence. It took me forever to edit that down for the recap. That was days worth of editing right there. But yeah, it was very fascinating because that sequence was we're watching it back again, from an outside perspective, just as a viewer. I was like, yeah, it was very clear that tensions were running high there. Everyone was real stressed out, myself included. It was an intense scenario, and nobody liked where it was going. Because, even for me, I was trying to wind the session down when that started happening. When Archaea decided to walk out Archaea got thrown off the roof. And I was basically going to end it there, but Emil was the one who started diving in, and I was like, hold on, this session ain't over yet. And I was like, shoot, I gotta figure out how this is going to happen then. So I was improvising a lot off the top of my head and trying to adjudicate how that whole scenario was going to go on the fly. And so I was all stressed out. Everybody else was all clearly stressed out, and it was intense. It was one of the most intense moments in the campaign. It's an incredible moment, incredible story beat, but it was so stressful at the time.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it now, I just like you said, really good story beat. I just kind of smile at everything that happened around that time because it was while it was stressful, it was stressful for pretty much everybody afterwards. It's stuck together, continued forward with this to keep the story going, and made something even better.
Yeah,
out of it.
Yeah, because that led to a lot of setup for things that would basically. Well, and again, that's part of the beauty of stuff like that you get in these long-term campaigns is those moments that really troubled the players. You get to see how that sticks with the characters and how that affects them going down the line, because the characters never forgot that moment either. That was pretty clear, and a lot of the rest of the story was influenced by that moment, just their vendetta against Emil, and wanting to give justice to Archaea, all of that stuff. And I think perhaps most poetically was the permanent cosmetic reminder that Chauncey got of that moment.
And then later get rescued and then get hit by a tree.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it wasn't that you guys got rescued. You guys were chasing in a helicopter for once this time.
Yeah.
Which was a great moment. We got to pull out Mr. G's piloting skills early on.
Yeah.
Will say though, I do love One of the things I will say just about the campaign as a whole is I love the boss designs that came out of a lot of the bosses.
Oh yeah, I had so much fun collaborating with Sleepy on that, and on all of them, and it was always one of the biggest treats for me as a GM to see those artworks come in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they were so good.
They were amazing.
I still think the Dawn is like the best one so far.
The
I
Dawn,
don't think I've
That
been
one
able
was
to
great.
beat the Dawn.
the Dawn was amazing. I think, and it was like pretty much seeing, like when that boss was revealed, that was just like whoa, whoa, like let's go.
Oh yeah, that was great. And you know, again with the collaboration that went into that, because obviously she doesn't know the lore, you know, like the Resident Evil lore as much. So you kind of got to go like back and forth and be like, all right, this is the Plaga sort of deal. Let's create an original Plaga monster. And I gave her some details, some characteristics of it, and then she just gets to go crazy from there. And and she did a few concept sketches and sent those my way, and it was just awesome seeing her go out and designing those monsters.
What was it? I don't know if it was that one or if it was another one or if it was one of the other bosses after, but I was like, I think it was the Dawn that gave me very Dead Spacey vibes.
Or there was was it maybe the Spectre virus one, where you fought the Dawn's son?
Maybe
That one was. Hold on, let me bring it up on the stream so people could see what visuals we're referencing here, and just revisit these artworks in general because these were great.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So this was the Don in his mutant form, and this was his son who was infected with the Spectre virus, transformed into this. And this one, I actually had. I'd actually had sent necromorphs as reference to Ilo for drawing this one. So this one is a little Dead Spacey in its origin.
Just because I was like, yeah, that's right. Because I looked at this one and just went, my mind goes, shoot off the limbs.
Yeah.
Just waiting for big orange globules to aim at.
Necromorph PTSD.
I was using a program for that one too, so it's like I had to get used to the brushes and then pop this thing out like as soon as I could.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this one I think you had the most creative freedom on, because I gave some ideas and input on the other ones. Well, Artemis was definitely the least, because that one I pretty much described entirely. Like I had a very specific idea for how that looked. But then with the Dawn a little bit more, and then with this one it was mostly Sleepy, because I gave principles essentially, and then that was it. I was like, I think the main principle I gave was that this thing needs to be nasty. And nasty and nightmarish and just absolutely terrifying. And then obviously the misty smoke bits from the way the virus works. But she really did make it nasty. Like the nastiest part about it to me is like the super gaunt torso, and then the big bulbous belly below it. Like that's just ugh.
It's so veiny.
Yeah, and all the veins too. Awful. Yeah, it's perfect.
I got to see all the detail all nice and close up whenever I'm editing the thumbnails.
Oh yeah, you got to work with these a bit. So, but yeah, Arc 4, well, there's actually a few more details on the history of the Feliciano crime family. And I actually, in my secret histories document, I do have a family tree of the Felicianos.
Oh,
okay.
And
actually
actually,
somewhere.
I am, well, technically no. Well, because Chauncey was not a Feliciano.
Oh, that's right. He was just his dad was
He was the underboss, who was a part of
Dad was a coward.
He was a part of the family in the organizational sense.
the family, but not part of the family.
Yeah, but he was not Feliciano by blood. He was not an heir to
Bella was
the. That's true. Well, yeah, but I don't think I put her in the lineage on the family tree because she was kind of loosely a part of it. I think her dad was, I want to say, Ernesto's brother. So Ernesto Feliciano, the Don, was essentially her uncle. I believe that was the case. I might be mistaken, but it was that kind of like loose association, which I don't record that part of the tree on here, but which is why there was room for her there. But yeah, I was right. Ernesto did only have 2 kids, which was Mario, who you guys killed.
Yep.
And Liliana, who was the businesswoman who basically said on the news, like, let them die. And nope. I'm not affiliated.
Yeah. None of it.
So, and basically, she kind of brought the Feliciano family in a more legitimate direction economically.
When the mansion was taken over, and I proposed the idea of taking over the mansion as a camp, were you expecting that to be possible before that?
Oh yeah, for sure. That was something that I'd sort of planned. I don't remember how far in advance I'd planned it, but I knew it was definitely a heavy consideration before that moment ever came up.
Stronghold.
I'm not gonna lie though, for the most of the time being the guy, I thought I was the guy that was the son of the Felicianos.
Mm-hmm. See, I felt like that would have been
the bastard triplets.
Yeah, I felt like that was going to be, that was super obvious. So I think I kind of deliberately veered away from that of making you related to someone too major.
It may have been hard, like it may have been more daunting to Chauncey.
Yeah, in hindsight, I kind of feel that way as well. I feel like it might have had a little bit more emotional impact if it was the Don, but I think I just was not foreseeing how major of a villain the Don would become. Because to me, in my mind, when I first conceived of it, I was like, okay, we got these 3 main baddies. The Don's there, but really Leonardo, after you find out that he's Chauncey's father, is going to be the one that attracts the most attention. But that did not end up. Yeah, that did not end up being the case, because the Don actually ended up being a very present threat after he took Chauncey out, and I think it ultimately ended up being the most memorable villain to come out of that arc.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was like, there was a lot of stuff that I think we did to make him.
That's true, because that wasn't,
because like there was that moment where like Emil's coming in.
Yeah, that arc did not play out the way I expected, even to the very beginning. Well, again, it kind of started the same way as the first arc as well, just dropping you guys off and saying like, you're in free roam. Yep. I plant the seeds for you to go in that direction, but you guys decide how. And Emil turned it into a business meeting. I'm like, sure. They'll meet with the CEO of Greenhouse Solutions, so, and that ended up being the scenario you guys go in on. But so that was one of those, this was the point where I really feel like I was starting to get the hang of GMing and starting to get the hang of having the right amount of prep, which was, had long been one of my issues, was essentially over preparing and going to really specific detail. And then when things go off the rails, not knowing, what to do or having to improvise or fill in extra details. So with that one, giving you guys that open-ended slate going into this arc, I knew I didn't do so much preparation that I would be tied to one specific vision, and yet I knew enough of what was generally going on so that I could improvise within that framework. And so when you guys approached it in the first episode as a business meeting, and you guys have that whole meeting, I'm like, all right, this works. But in the back of my head going like, okay, here's all the plot that's happening here. Also, they know Chauncey's face. And he's the guy.
It's the guy. That's the guy.
Which is, I love, again, editing the recaps and getting to revisit all these moments is so precious. Because seeing that moment again and having that immortalized in those recaps to be more easily found, it's just so great seeing everyone's initial reaction, because that was such a huge moment. But like with Doc, your reaction, because obviously you referenced that moment endlessly since then. But at the time, if you watch that moment now, his reaction is so restrained at the time. Like he didn't have too big of a reaction in the moment. But then like I think by the next day he was like sending me DMs just like I need to know. I'm the guy. I think you said you like didn't get much sleep that night because you were still trying to figure out how you're the guy.
What was going on? Like so my initial reaction was it was like, yeah, I'm that guy. And then I was like, wait, why am I that guy? I don't think I did that much to deserve the guy role at that point in time. So I was like, why am I that guy? Like, yo, Raph, why am I guy? that was like, that's why. So initially when I took it, I was like, yeah, you're damn right I'm that guy.
No, see.
So it took a bit to set in.
Yeah. And see, I think you were specifically not expecting this to be your personal arc as well. In fact, I think you were pretty confident that you weren't going to have a personal arc just by how little work you put into your backstory.
Exactly.
Because I remember
I'll never have one of those.
I remember you talking to me between arcs 3 and 4. At one point, we were having a conversation, and you said something about, like, along that fact. It's like, I wonder whose arc is going to be next. Because I know it's not mine. And I was like, oh boy, you sweet summer child.
You don't even know. You're the guy.
I vaguely put in information in my backstory, therefore I wouldn't have an arc. And then it was for me.
Yeah.
That's like I think, if I can recommend that to somebody, create a character that doesn't have a story.
And that's how it originally...
Let the GM define your character's backstory, like unknowledged almost. Like, oh, well, this is something I wouldn't even have thought of.
Well, that's what I think is, some players have interesting ways of going about that sort of thing. Like, I still really am a big fan of what Taliesin did in Critical Role Campaign 2, of playing an amnesia character. So, where it's just like, he doesn't remember most of his backstory. And so the GM just gets to go, all right, sounds like fun.
Exactly, and I feel it's good in that right as being able to tell that story without knowing it. So there's like no meta knowledge to me going into, like, had I written the backstory and you would have went into a story arc, going into it the way that you did, I'd have been like, yeah, I know why I'm that guy. It wouldn't have had as strong of an impact as the snap.
Yeah, but that's the balance of writing good backstories for role-playing games. Because writing good backstories for role-playing games isn't necessarily the same thing for writing a good character backstory in general. There are different considerations that you have to keep in mind. And so I think the key to writing a good backstory for an RPG character is understanding that you're essentially writing one half of a story. You're filling in what your character knows and leaving enough blanks for the GM to fill in. And that's where the creativity comes in, is figuring out what blanks to leave. And making sure that can be interesting and giving the GM enough freedom to operate within that space.
Yeah, because it's definitely a trap too of making a finished character with a backstory. Where it's like
basically,
you write a story that has a beginning, middle, and end, and you basically hand in a finished character to a DM who's like, I can't do anything with this. They're like the character's story is already done in the backstory.
Yeah, these are level 20 characters you just created.
That's definitely a danger, is going full Mary Sue in your backstory.
I think the poor knowledge of like RPing, that's one, why I didn't do the backstory, and two, it was good that I didn't, because of the fact of,
just how it worked
you
out.
Put too much information in.
Oh yeah. Like you would have rather with your lesser experience done not enough than too much.
Yeah, because it allows me to enjoy the story a little bit more, because like I looked at when we first started, I think it was Allie's backstory I was told by Lisa to look at it because she wanted to create the characters together. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I looked and I was like, that's too much information. Like on the 5th day you were born, you saw things. Like, wait, what? I was like, I don't even think I put an actual birth date in it. We just we canonized the fact that it was their birthday when the tower had fallen.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, it was the.
Did we bring that up?
I don't think we. No, I guess we didn't make it canon, but I mean, between me and you, we both.
I think you mentioned it. Yeah, I think you mentioned it, but
yeah, because usually when I build a character, I always build it on the same birthday as mine, so therefore I won't forget. It's so much easier that way. But yeah, that would have been the same day that the tower had fallen. In case anybody wants to give me birthday gifts.
So,
just kidding.
Do you guys want to know the sort of backstory behind the Felicianos here then?
Yeah.
So this would be essentially, this is all that's filled in on Chauncey's section of the secret histories. Because this secret history goes all the way back to the 1920s.
Damn.
Yeah. So from 1920 to 1933, the U.S. prohibition leads to the rise of organized crime in Chicago. And that's the thing, I guess, to give a quick interjection here. Because obviously, yeah, at that time, you weren't thinking about getting your own personal arc. But the thing, and I don't think I necessarily went into the campaign as a whole with the intent of giving you one either. Because I was like, okay, this is the backstory. You know, it is not too complex of a character to start with. We don't need to, you know, there's not too much to do there. But at one point I got inspired and I realized, well, there was a number of things that led up to it. And somewhere along the way, I'd conceived of what would go on to become the Feliciano arc. And once I'd gotten that bug, I was like, this is it. This is the story. And I started breaking it and realizing I was like, yeah, this needs to happen. Because one little detail about Resident Evil is that Raccoon City is a fictional town in the Midwest United States. And we're given enough detail in some of the lore and some of the documents to know that it's actually really close to Chicago. We don't know too much about its geographic location outside of it's in the Midwest, close to Chicago. Possibly somewhere in Illinois. And so, like, and that kind of led me down the path, because, like, Chauncey, I can't remember if he was a Raccoon City native or if he was just from that. No, he was from Chicago.
Native.
Yeah, he was Chicago native.
Chicago.
That was the part of your backstory that I got. When then you go over to Raccoon City later on. So it was looking at that Chicago part, and at some point I got the bug of wanting to do Plaga Mobsters, and that just snowballed from there. When I realized, I think it was the idea of Chicago. And it's like, what does Chicago have? Which is this rich history of organized crime. And what can Resident Evil do about that? And the Plaga parasite obviously can be used in a number of ways by virtue of the fact that it just takes over already existing people. So in 4, they introduced that as crazed villagers, was essentially the superficial theme that it was presented as. And then in 5, they brought it back as, well, more crazed villagers. Crazed villagers and military people.
Yeah.
Wait, no, they did that in 4 as well. Dang it. They really didn't do too much new in terms of the Plaga then in 5. But, other than changing some of the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
However, so I was like, okay, well, that's a presentation that hasn't been done before, is these parasitic gangsters. And, you know, I'm a big fan of just crime fiction in general. I really love, like, crime thrillers and stuff like that, and, you know, and gangster movies and things like that. So, and organized crime has always really fascinated me. So I was like, okay, I could tie in those elements, give them some parasites so that they still retain those themes and that presentation while also being BOWs. And it just all snowballed from there. And I realized, all right, Chauncey's got to be tied to one of these big crime families. And that's basically where the inspiration came from. And that was, you could measure when I came up with it, because I think it was between the first and second arc, because the second arc, no, it was between the second and third arc, because the third arc starts with you guys going to Chicago to fight that one outbreak where you're looking for Aiden.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that the Feliciano family is name dropped by some of the locals that you talked to during that outbreak. And that was specifically dropped there because I had just come up with that arc, and I wanted to start setting up for it.
Yeah.
As early as possible. So that was, you could kind of measure when it
just came up with it just then.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, okay, got to send you guys to Chicago and name drop this crime family. So that's dealing in bioweapons.
Fast.
Yeah. So, from 1920 to 1933, Prohibition leads to the rise of organized crime in Chicago. The Feliciano crime family, founded by Lorenzo Feliciano, grows to prominence as the primary competitors of the Chicago outfit. Fast forward then to 1969, Leonardo Bellucci, who's an enforcer for the Feliciano family, abandons a year-long relationship with Helen Clancy after discovering she is pregnant with triplets. Then fast forward to 1980. Ernesto Feliciano inherits the title of Don from his father, which I believe there's a bit more lore there in the newspaper clippings and stuff that you find in the documents that go into more detail about the Feliciano family. Then from 1970 to 1997, this kind of going ahead and forward a bit, the Feliciano family continues its illicit business. In 1982, Leonardo is promoted to Capo Regime for his years of service. In 1990, he becomes underboss to Don Ernesto Feliciano. Then from 98 to 2005, which is 2005 is when you guys finally arrive at their manor. Ernesto and Leonardo agree to take on former Umbrella employees Elliot Walker and Raphael Simmons as bioweapons researchers. In 2004, Walker uses the crime syndicate's resources researchers for bioweapons. In 2004, Walker uses the syndicate's resources to acquire plaga parasites from the black market. And after replicating the parasites and discovering how to control them via high-frequency sounds, Walker and Simmons begin infecting the Feliciano family with submissive plaga one by one. By the time Ernesto Feliciano realizes something is wrong, all of his own men turn on him, and he is infected as well. And Ernesto, Leonardo, and their consigliere, Antonio, are all infected with dominant plagas, but are also implanted with devices through which Walker can administer extreme pain to them at will, thus compelling them to obey. And Walker then commands Ernesto to transfer all of the Feliciano's funds into his own accounts. So Walker and Simmons depart to create...
Just robbed him.
Basically. Walker and Simmons depart to create their own bioterror organization, their own independent organization known as the Manifold. They leave the now subservient, plaga-infested Feliciano family functioning in Chicago as a supplemental source of income. So, that's basically what happened there. There's almost a creepy horror story within there of what that must have been like when Walker and Simmons were secretly turning the Feliciano family into their puppets.
Yeah.
Because that would have happened, over the course of a while, of them secretly taking people aside and infecting them. And by the time the Don realized something was amiss, it was too late. So he definitely had his own little horror story in there somewhere.
So he was the last one to be infected then?
Essentially, yeah.
So when we saw him in the room talking to Walker, that wasn't the plaga that he was controlling him with. That was just basically just a portable or a long-range taser that he was just hitting him with. The dog collar. Yeah,
because you may recall that conversation he had with Walker through the screen, where he kind of clutches his chest and goes down to his knees. That was how Walker controlled them, because the dominant plaga cannot be controlled in the same way that the submissive ones can. And since they had the dominant plagas, because they got to turn into big giant monsters, he had to find another way of controlling them. And so he did that by implanting these things that he could just mentally use his computer mind, his neural implant, to activate at will with just the thought.
Mm-hmm. Because I figured it was just like he had the dominant plaga, but he could still control plaga in general.
Yeah. Yeah, he could control Plaga in general, or not. Well, I suppose to some extent in general, right? Like, obviously, he could cast the Dominate thing on them if he were to meet them in person.
Yeah, because I figured that's the kind of, like, that was the effect he was kind of doing before we knew he could do that. It was just like he had power over Infected.
Yeah, he does have some general power over Infected as well, and that's actually something that never really got delved into. I don't have this written down, but this is totally. I don't know if this is something I've talked about. The NPC that you guys found locked up in the prisons when you first arrived there. I think it was Dr. Campbell, the woman that escaped, and she actually helped you in the final fight against the Dawn. She basically was being used, obviously, as like a researcher, as, you know, forced labor researcher. But she was not infected with a plaga, you guys may recall. Because, obviously, because she helped you, which she wouldn't have been able to do if were she infected with a plaga. The guy in the cell next to her was, and Mr. G just straight up shot him. But she was not. And the reason for that is because Walker didn't bring her in. Don Feliciano brought her in as an additional researcher, not only to help with all their bioweapon stuff, but also kind of brought her in under the table to see if she can help him to get rid of this implant that keeps him, you know, servant to Walker. So that's what she was doing there. So she
was trying to take it out of him.
So that was Don Feliciano trying to, because he was not a willing participant in all the Manifold stuff. You know, not fully, obviously, you know, he had to play the part, but this was still something that was forced upon him. So he had that, like, going on in the background, was this attempt at subverting Walker in the long run. But you guys stopped him before he ever got to get a chance to break his leash. And I think you guys ultimately relocated Dr. Campbell after the fact, because she was like, just get me out of here. I've been a prisoner. So, and then, of course, I suppose everyone's probably curious about the deal Emil struck with the Manifold.
Yeah, what happened there?
So,
I don't know.
Here's the thing. I think, Lauren, you had mentioned this at one point in our conversations. There was a lot of conversations happening after Emil's betrayal, trying to figure out where to go from there. And one of the things that came of that conversation was that audio log that you guys found giving Emil his final closure, which we collaborated on. And that was actually a lot of fun. Like, that was a very direct collaboration. I think I wrote all of Scott's lines and you wrote all of Emil's lines.
We played it out like an RP where you would have his lines and I would come in and put his other ones.
Exactly. And then we just turned that into a script and voiced it out. So, and it was interesting because that was the first time it got revealed to you that Scott was working with the Manifold. So you kind of got that twist off screen. It didn't play out in the campaign, but you got to write a script of their first interaction. So, but in one of those conversations that we had, you had, I think, offhandedly remarked that Emil, given the right circumstances, Emil would be willing to revive Archaea. And that was basically what spawned the idea of how things were going to play out from that point forward. Because that's all I needed to know, was whether he was willing, whether that was at all a possibility. And so because of that, basically, the deal that Emil struck was one in which, obviously, we got superficial details from his talk with Scott, but essentially, he revived Archaea, and he let the Manifold ultimately take her body, but in exchange, Emil gets first pick at the blood samples that come out of her, and send him his share of the samples. I think it was ultimately a few thousand samples. You guys had the exact details in the ledger in the tower, which you guys accurately guessed was Greenhouse Solutions. I could say that now.
10%.
I mean, it was obvious.
yeah. There was only so many people it could be.
Well, that was a thing that I wasn't, I guess, sure of when it was happening, because like Uno said, like, oh yeah, we're sending these samples over to unnamed, allies. I was like, so Emil is still, like, even when we were really doing it, it's like, so Emil is still in business with them. I thought that had continued happening, but that was just at the beginning.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
This was all within like the first year or so. He would have received his share of the samples. So yeah, that was basically the deal. And then obviously Emil gets to pioneer a lot of the front end research on it. Mm-hmm. And well, I guess you don't really know yet what might have come of it for Emil. But
I'm assuming he's immortal by now.
No, he'll die.
You could also make a pretty fair assumption that he did contribute a lot to breaking the AACT process.
Mm-hmm.
Emil and Walker both. That was kind of a shared breakthrough, because
that's what happened.
That was something that like Walker couldn't necessarily do on his own, because like Katara before him, he needed Emil's expertise to weigh in and complete
Emil had
the
to come in
puzzle.
and be like, that should be a plus, not a minus.
Essentially. So, Emil, history maker. Always next to the guys, at least, that are making history.
And then eventually he's killed by them.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was essentially the deal. He brought her back, gave her body to the Manifold, and didn't really have any say in what happens to her from there, as long as he gets his share of Archaea blood samples to work with.
Yeah.
And he certainly did. But
by the way, how cool would it be if Mr. G is the one that gets the "how do you want to do this" moment with Emil? Just thought about that. I'm sorry.
Would that be cool?
Well, I mean,
it wouldn't be cool with me, but I mean, like, it would kind of be cool.
Yeah.
In what way?
Like, just you killing off your own character.
Oh, with okay, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, Mr.
That'd be kind of funny.
Otherwise,
that would be
Mr. G.
Yeah, I was gonna say narratively, I don't know if Mr. G has too much of a stake in it.
Exactly,
so that's true.
that's
Meta-wise, yeah, Lauren killing off his own character would be quite poetic.
Yeah. There's actually, I guess I'm not gonna say that here. Actually, there's something I want to talk to Raph about that.
Okay. So, I think that's about all the secrets to spill for Arc 4.
About killing my own character. No.
How dare you let me kill my own character? Bullshit.
I guess actually that doesn't matter, because it doesn't really matter. I will make a request.
All right.
If Mr. G is the person to get Emil down to 0 hit points, don't say anything.
Just
because
like,
he has nothing to do with it.
Just like let it continue playing out.
There's literally everybody else on the party. Whoever's coming after G gets the kill.
Asking me to fudge the numbers?
No, I'm just telling you to not tell me that he's dead.
It's already written in my mind how it's gonna end, like how you're gonna do this moment. I've been carrying around an M1911 for a long time.
Because like,
which you still haven't fired to this day, correct?
Yep, still have not.
As it
fired.
should be.
It's only gonna have one bullet used. That's all I need.
That's gonna be interesting.
Because even if Mr. G gets the "how do you want to do this," it's just gonna be a layup. Or
yeah. You're basically
back to the way I did it for Katara.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So like, if it, I just want you to like, if it does happen where G is the one who brings him down to 0, move on to the next turn. Unless his turn's directly afterwards, then I don't know. Then yeah, it's fine. I don't want to die.
Yeah. No, unless Emil's turn is immediately after.
Unless Emil's turn directly after G, then
it's just
like I don't.
0 hit points. It's just like no, he's
one free turn.
Good.
I just want this. I want them to. I want to have the heart attack. and not die gruesomely, and make sure they feel like they wasted all this time. that would suit well.
Bring him to 0 and he just heals himself.
Self-revive.
No.
I want to enact immortal.
Use my special Emil A-act ability.
Yeah. Freaking ultra legendary resistance. Resist death.
Yeah. Automatically
no.
succeed all saving throws, including death saving throws.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Who knows what Emil's up to these days? We'll see how that plays out when we get there.
Not taking care of his beard, I'll tell you that much.
Enact time warp to restart this fight in my favor.
So, the next arc was the 5th one, which is the Gathering, and this was kind of a more loose sequence of events. I feel like looking back on it, I've talked with Lauren a bit about this. Obviously, I've learned a lot about GMing over the course of this, and I think I did have some problems with some of my overall structuring. And I feel like I had this problem with Arc 3 and Arc 5, right? In the Beast Arc and in the Gathering Arc, I feel like they weren't succinct enough. Like, there wasn't a clear central through line. Obviously, they had the long-term... the Beast more so.
Payoffs.
Yeah, the Beast more so. But the Gathering, to a lesser extent, didn't really have a clear central theme or through line, other than the fact that you were racing against the Manifold to collect these viruses, and you're facing off against this specific team. But even then, because you didn't kill the entire team in that arc, it kind of didn't have the same, the same closed off story feel to it that I would like a story arc to have. So, yeah, lessons learned. Next campaign, I'll probably be a little bit better structured.
Yeah, I think it just needed a better verb.
Yeah, other than find, I guess.
That's actually one of the
Or
things.
steal.
Future GMs, watch Matt Koval's videos. Matt Koval has a great video on verbs and how he talks about what good makes good verbs and what makes bad verbs. Find is actually on his list of bad verbs.
Oh yeah,
because it's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, it's like find the girl or whatever, right? It's like the classic adventure. Someone went missing, find them. It's like, okay, and then what?
Yeah. So I guess there was plenty of and then what for you guys though, because Katara was just gobbling those viruses up.
Yeah, she kind of was. she was going for her own 100% run.
Oh, you're damn right. You're damn right. That's all she was doing.
Inhaling them, glass and all.
I feel like though that's what started really bringing concern from the party to Katara though, because of just
Especially
how
when she
much.
exploded.
Yeah, it's because of how much she was really delving into these viruses at that point. Because it was like it no longer, because one of the things was, it was like she was still there about the mission, but it also wasn't about the mission. It was about the viruses.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if I was conveying that well enough at the time. Which, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, there's always been that kind of element of Katara's just there because she needs someone to get her to her next thing,
her next hit. She's an addict.
And one of the things too is, like, if you realize this too from the very beginning, of just the Resident Evil story that we have. The initial thing was using the party.
That's right.
To get to where she needed to go, and unintentionally, because she grew fond of everybody and everything, she considers them family. But unintentionally, that's literally what it ended up becoming later on. Was there are these viruses? While there's a bigger thing that needs to be done, I still need to get these, and thus. The party's there to help me get to that point.
Yeah.
And think about it, it's like a very unintentional thing that was there. And one of the things that I think like isn't really on Katara's mind, right?
That's kind of subconscious.
Because yeah, just subconscious, like it just happens.
Yeah,
But
that's interesting because that's kind of,
cares about them.
and I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the tension of that character a little bit because, well, essentially she was still, like you pointed out, she's essentially still using the party, but what changed is that now she wouldn't leave them behind given the chance. Where you'd outright stated, I think early on in the campaign that, you know, she would accompany the party, but if push came to shove, you know, and like everyone was dying, she would be running. And I think by the end of the campaign that wasn't the case. Like she wouldn't leave anyone behind if it got to that point.
Yeah, because it was definitely one of those things where, like, if the party hadn't really accepted her regardless of everything and things hadn't gone the way that they did with all the bonding, she probably would have stayed around just for the idea that everybody here has something to contribute for me to get a virus, and once things hit the fan, I run.
Mm-hmm.
On the topic of Katara's virus obsession, I can only imagine the amount of concern Nuria felt every mission. Because every mission, it was just more and more virus.
Bringing them home.
Because it got to a point where it was like, all right, so how many viruses do you have? Oh, I have copies of G, and I have copies of this, and yeah, I got all these.
Yeah, and again, that's I have a bit of that tension with that character, whereas like in this particular arc, in The Gathering, she wasn't just depriving the Manifold, she was gaining for herself. So there was a little bit of selfish intent there.
Yeah.
Even if she was ultimately doing the right thing.
Because I think there was like a talk at one point of the idea of like, all right, so if we can't get our hands on this virus, destroy it. And Katara was wholly against that. You know, it was like, if we can't get their hands on this, we need to shoot it or at least get it out of their hands and destroy it. And she's like, no.
Because that was Mr. G's thing. Because those were his orders. Like, his orders were just to keep it out of the Manifold's hands. Where that wasn't necessarily Katara's motivation, though.
Yeah, no, she was like, I want it.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Whereas Mr. G is, as long as the bad guys don't have it, his mission has succeeded.
Yep. And yeah, I thought like in regards to The Gathering, like that's one of the things that I look back at and I just go, I hope I can, like I said, I hope I conveyed that enough.
Yeah, that's a bit of an interesting subtlety. I don't think I quite necessarily thought of that, but now looking back on it, yeah, that was definitely a little narrative thread that was going there.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
No, go ahead.
I was going to change topics, so if you have anything else you want to add to that.
No, I don't have anything else.
I was going to say, here's the thing that I don't know if anyone was necessarily curious about, but it is something that I have that I think is worth mentioning. So Ronin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys met the party of Manifold baddies, which was actually a ton of fun. That was probably my favorite thing about that arc, was being able to pit you guys against an evil party. Because that turned out...
explicitly evil party.
Explicitly evil party. Because that turned out better than I'd actually hoped. You know, like that was already a cool draw for me. And I think that's always a fun thing to do as a GM, is to create, you know, a dark party, you know, like your Dark Avengers or your, that sort of thing, the kind of inverse of the party of just having a rival party of essentially player characters to some extent. I think the only one that wasn't like a player character build was Ronin. So yeah, actually Ronin and Sphinx, he used a little bit of a NPC style stat block. But yeah, so Ronin, you guys are probably wondering what his deal is, or maybe you weren't, but I thought about what his deal is.
I mean, I just kind of figured there was the stat block for whatever those things are called, and that was you're just using
Verdugo.
that.
I was using that, but his deal in terms of like just narratively, like where did this thing come from?
Well, Walker.
Well, so
Right.
essentially,
I do want to know. I do want to know because now that you bring it up, because when we did find out it's like, all right, this isn't a person. This is just a straight up,
Yeah, just
like a
A-
straight up
like,
BOW. Like
this is a weapon of the bioorganic kind.
yeah, it was more of like oh, okay, so this isn't okay, so it's just a creature that somebody threw out here to kind of go on, a thing with. But now that you bring it up, I am curious about what's up with Ronan. Like,
yeah. So basically, after the events of Resi 4, the Los Illuminados cult, of course, was dismantled, but one lone Verdugo remained, and without a master to serve, it ended up, because those things were specifically subservient, they were intelligent and subservient was the thing that we see in Resident Evil 4, right? Like they serve they obey a specific person, basically to the T, and they're intelligent, and they sometimes wear clothes. So that was, there were some elements there to pick up on, that I kind of integrated. But yeah, I liked that element of them specifically serving one master, and how they were kind of intelligent, essentially assassins, or hands for this figure. So there was one in Spain with the Los Illuminados cult that had survived, that was just never encountered in Resident Evil 4, and without a master to serve, it basically ended up wandering aimlessly throughout Spain. And through a bunch of like cryptid-like rumors and sightings, the Manifold was led to this lone wandering Verdugo around 2005 or so. And from there, Walker used his Plaga control to essentially give it a new master to serve, and hence the nickname, because it was it was
Just
searching
a wandering.
it was searching for a master, and it was a wandering warrior.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, that's where the kind of inspiration behind the name came in. So, yeah, that was a little bit of backstory that I'd thought of for that particular character that never really, had any relevance. But in the back of my head, I was just kind of like, this is where this thing comes from. So, fun little character, fun little party to run in general. That battle on the beach is still, in my opinion, one of the more exciting combat encounters in the campaign as a whole.
With the
The
what do you call
Iceberg
it?
Chauncey.
Iceberg Chauncey,
the beach encounter.
Yeah, that was so intense. And also, of course, I pulled Scorpion straight out of Mr. G's backstory. It was like the one element I could salvage out of it, because you weren't necessarily, because he was so late game, you weren't necessarily writing for elaborateness or for tie-ins.
Yeah.
In fact, you didn't even write Scorpion into his backstory at all. That was from a separate, like, little short fiction that you'd done.
Well, that was just for XP, I think.
Yeah, just for XP to catch him up. And I think you'd even mentioned to me outright at the time that you never thought that was ever gonna come up.
Nope. I literally, I think at one point, I was trying to figure out what to use for, like, this character, and I just had, like, a blank spot for the name. I just, like, went into RPG, or I went to fantasy name generators, went to, like, secret agent code names, whatever, just picked the first one.
Oh, is that where that came from?
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
Scorpion sounds fine.
Sounds dope. Vague and evocative.
Yeah.
But nope, then bam, you meet Scorpion, because I realized there was a place for that role to be filled. And I decided to come up with a very, how should I say, noticeable way of integrating it, right? Where you directly get backstabbed by this person. Because and I had specifically salvaged from that story the element that you never saw Scorpion.
Yep.
Mr. G
I have
never,
no idea what they look
never
like.
saw her. Yeah, you didn't know.
'Cause-
You didn't even know if they were a
Yeah.
man or a woman.
No, because there's this whole. Okay, so what happened in that adventure?
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know if that's ever the events in Italy have ever been properly explained to everybody.
There, he was sent after, I think, some mob people, probably, and I think he was given a job to kill some high level person, and he couldn't get close to them because they had just introduced a new security individual, goes by the name of Scorpion, and kept them out of his range. But he knew that there was going to be a time when they had to move from like one safe house to another safe house. He was like, I can intercept them and kill them there, and hopefully try to take out the Scorpion person as well. So with the whole when they were transporting that his target, he saw what he believed was Scorpion, took the shot and killed them, only for the actual Scorpion to take a shot from a completely different vantage point and almost kill him. And that's how I know who Scorpion is.
Yeah, that was Mr. G's first encounter with her. And now Mr. G is Scorpion.
Yeah. It's all for a full circle. I'm just going to go back to killing people in Italy, probably.
So, yeah, I realized, in editing the recap, there were definitely some strong moments in that arc. Especially that moment where you guys freaking ice Scorpion. Well, the deaths for all of the rival party members were actually all pretty memorable, I think. Because there was the assassination of Scorpion. And there was also the assassination of Scott, where Mr. G just straight, friggin' murks him on the street, or on the highway. And also Ronan got eaten by an Ouroboros. So that was the whole thing. So, yeah, not too much there besides that, though. That one was also pretty straightforward. So let's talk about a few things that we'd glossed over about Arc 6, The Manifold, last week. So there's actually a few things to talk about here, but I suppose the main cliffhanger I gave was regarding Aiden, because he was originally planned to be killed off pretty early on. Essentially at Project Ares was where I was really hoping it would happen, but also had secondarily Langley as a backup option.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he never died, of course, changed a lot of plans for the endgame. And so essentially, to give a little bit of background first, before I get into the pre-written cinematics that I had for his death, Aiden, while he was in Walker's captivity, was obviously he's already a T-virus evolved, but he was also given the AACT enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys recall, one of the things that's mentioned in the document, in the AACT memo, that you guys found from the Manifold, was that some individuals, obviously there are different possible reactions. Either they become infected, nothing happens, or they become some sort of evolved. And in very rare instances become giant monsters, which is what happened to Emerson. But it also mentioned that some individuals have a delayed reaction that is only essentially
like it's triggered,
in the event of something traumatic. So basically, if you guys were to kill Aiden, that would trigger his AACT. And
so we haven't seen his AACT yet.
You have not. So basically,
so if we kill him,
you go find him and kill him now.
Let's kill him right now. Let's go.
we just gotta bring him to whoever needs to die, and then just like shoot him in the back of the head,
or just send him on a
Sorry,
suicide
use my
mission.
boxing bag.
So here's the cinematic that would accompany that. If you were to reduce him to 0 hit points. So Aiden falls to his knees, the red in his eyes fade. And he says, "Thank you. Let my family rest." And then he convulses. His limbs ripple and swell. The device on his chest sparks, then shatters. The armor and clothing around his body tears as his once chiseled physique deforms into something more raw, more powerful. Steam emanates from him as if a colossal amount of energy is about to be unleashed. And after a moment, it does. There's a burst of hot air as his form swells entirely out of his clothes, and he takes the form of a giant, red-scaled reptilian behemoth, whose leathery wings spread wide behind it. You are momentarily deafened by a powerful, ferocious roar from the jaws of its snout. And with one beat of its wings, he lifts from the ground and obliterates the rooftop above. Thousands of pieces of debris fall to the floor, and you guys would have to make a mobility saving throw to avoid some bludgeoning damage, as well as getting restrained under the debris. As the winged mutant form of the man once called Aiden Sampson takes flight, disappearing out of your sight.
Turn into a dragon?
Everyone gets wings.
You get wings, and you get wings.
He turns into a dragon.
Yeah.
Did he turn into a dragon?
Yeah, he turned into a dragon.
And took off flying.
It's a red dragon.
So basically, yeah, and you guys, that was the Fire and Ice Tyrants were last-minute placeholders for the encounter with AX Aiden. Where basically he would be the one guarding the SAM turrets at the end, had you guys not kept that from happening.
All right.
All right.
So we got the lesser encounter.
Would he have
Fire and
been
Ice
under
Tyrants.
Walker's control, or would he just be this like raging beast?
No, he still would have been under Walker's control, because the A-Act that was administered to him would specifically, like, once it's triggered, and once he hits that transformation, then he would... it was essentially programmed to find Walker again, and then Walker would be able to keep him under his control as a more monstrous form. So he would basically just be this kaiju under Walker's thumb. So, gameplay-wise, once he seeks out Walker, he gets outfitted, and because Walker is planned for this. So here's how it would essentially play out. He would have the Ancient Red Dragon stat block from 5th edition.
Would have figured.
But with some modifications.
That's a high freaking... See, what?
Yeah, CR24.
That's a high CR.
CR24.
Oh, we got the easy end with those pirates, man.
You guys avoided a pretty tough fight. So he would essentially have the same stats as an Ancient Red Dragon, except he deals necrotic on a bite instead of fire. And his fire breath is replaced with Gatling guns that are mounted to his back. So it deal piercing,
but it's still
damage instead of fire damage, but everything else exactly the same numbers wise.
Yeah.
We are literally out here playing Torok. Thor Hunter.
Yeah. And then the dragon wing attack, right, where they beat their wings and they can knock everyone prone around them, is replaced with mortar fire, where it has like these mortar cannons mounted to his back as well that would launch out and detonate everything around him, and would deal explosive damage instead of bludgeoning damage. So that would have been AX Aiden. He would have gone back to Manifold Tower.
I want to fight it.
I would have
in the battle royale.
Yeah, battle royale. Aiden joins the battle royale, and if he dies,
whoever
this happens.
survives gets one full life boost, and then gets to fight the dragon.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds arcadey as heck. I love it. Yeah.
You fight a dragon, and you fight a dragon.
Yeah,
We
so
all become dragons and fight each other.
I loved the imagery of this. I would have shopped some Gatling guns onto the back of some dragon artwork, and given basically Aiden made him into this whole like dragon tank type enemy, like literal tank, and
He's
I wanted to keep
artillery.
Yeah, because I wanted the A-Act transformations. That was the thing with A-Act. Well, besides Emerson, I kind of wanted it to maintain this air of the character, right? Where the A-Act transformation is influenced by the character. Mm-hmm. So that's how I designed Katara's, was kind of playing to her strengths. It's like, okay, what does she got? She likes playing with fire, right? She's always burning stuff.
Literally and figuratively.
And also she has strong regenerative properties. It's like, all right, so I give her a passive regeneration and this fire enhancement to all of her attacks, right off the top. And then also the wings are just for increased mobility, which she already has a lot of, but now she can fly.
So you have just answered my question that I had for
a
bunch of stuff, which was wholly about it was going to be, so if anybody else were to get an A-Act enhanced formula, would it be tied to just their character, or is it just a universal thing that, it's on the formula? That's what they get.
Yeah.
You have just answered that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that was, I could see that was probably a curiosity on a couple people's minds. So the A-Act specifically enhances somebody's already existing like natural talents. So with Aiden, I guess like that ties into a couple factors about Aiden thematically, right? It's strong and it's beastly, and it's fire, which is kind of emblematic of rage and anger and emotions like that. And his name also just means fire. And then to add that extra thematic,
Sorry.
To add that extra thematic boost with Walker basically just arming him up, so he's still essentially a soldier even when he turns into a giant kaiju.
Yeah.
So, question randomly. If anybody else in the party were able to beat A-Act, what do you think their character would have turned into?
He would have been invisible all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm just curious about like Chauncey. Is he just like a walking machine gun?
Well, that would have to be outfitted, but he would probably just get like, I don't know, heavily armored or something. He would get, like 4 limbs.
Just like
he could hold.
Everybody else got wings. I don't think Chauncey gets wings.
He gets tank treads.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, is that like what
he
happens?
Gets wheels.
Just tank treads?
Maybe.
Oh,
Yuri becomes a cryomancer.
Probably.
But like actually a cryomancer.
Yeah, that probably would have been part of her thematics if she had, when you guys got hit by the A-Act missile, if she had developed mutations from those abilities, they probably would have been somewhat ice themed, since they would have accentuated her existing traits.
Oh, I would have loved for her to become like actual cryomancer.
What was it, like 2% chance?
Yeah, it was 2% chance. 2%.
Also, Raph, I feel like with this confirmation, you've made my wait even longer.
I will say, Raph,
you're obsessed.
I will say, Raph, I have a lot to talk to you about.
Oh boy. Conversations will need to be happening.
These conversations and everything have boasted a lot of ideas in this time. So
getting those creative juices flowing.
I
dig it. Well, there'll definitely be more conversations that need to be had offline. So that also said, I guess to just wrap a few things up on the Manifold arc. Obviously, Walker, big villain that was planned for a long time. Could have busted out his mini in Arc 3, but didn't get the chance to. It was ready. But it did give it a chance to get some improvements, and we got some mileage out of it in the teasers and whatnot. So yeah, Walker was actually a very... Well, I feel like there were essentially 3 major NPCs that I was really heavily invested in throughout this entire show, which were Walker, Aiden, and Sean. Right, I've talked about how Sean was essentially when we were first starting out and we didn't know who was going to GM, Sean was going to be my player character. And so I just recycled him as an NPC. Then there's Aiden, who obviously was there at the start of all this in that role play that I did with Lisa that eventually got turned into this show. That was the character I had control over. And so obviously he's just foundational to the very origins of this series. And is now just the character that just has a very special place in my heart. But Walker was also a character that I'd put a lot of thought into. Well, naturally, I had a long time to think about him. I created him as far back as there was that teaser before the campaign even began, where he has that conversation with Grimson. So, but yeah, I put a lot of work into developing like his backstory and whatnot, and figuring out who he was. And ultimately, I feel like his story is a very interesting and just kind of, well, I guess with all three of those characters, there's a lot of personal elements in them for me. And I like I said, I think we talked about this before, and I guess we could talk about it a little bit more publicly now. We have bounced around some plans of releasing some extra, like publishing some of the writings that were made for this show. Because there was a lot of things that were written for this show that the general public has not been able to see. Or at least it hasn't been too accessible. Because some of them you can see, but they're really hard to find. For example, all of the role plays, like some of the text role plays that you guys have done throughout the show where your characters are just talking to one another in between episodes. Some of those are phenomenal, and I would love to republish some of those in a more easy to find way.
Probably put them on the website somewhere.
Well, that's the idea we tossed around a while back, was the idea of creating essentially a little digital book that includes all of the best extraneous writings that were created for the show, all of the role plays, all of these NPC backstories that I'd written out, and things of that nature, just compiling them all into one succinct document and then releasing that to the public.
Oh, and all the player backstories.
No, don't do that.
I think that's a little bit more. Yeah, I don't think we need to publish those, to be honest. No. I feel like that's the kind of intimate thing that stays between a GM and
I wasn't going for intimacy, I was going for pathetic.
I was gonna say I wouldn't mind.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind on my end because Katara's was fun to write.
Yeah, I'm sure a few of you wouldn't mind, but ultimately I think we'll keep those on the down low and just let them be the mythic formative documents of this campaign. But the NPC backstories those I think should be in there, because those are things that are just so full of detail that is never going to be able to come up, but is also like I put a lot of work into the prose of them, and as I was kind of looking back on them, I realized, man, I really feel like these should be out there in some form. So yeah, there's that. Although I'm a bit hesitant about doing Mr. Fox's though, but yeah, we could still throw that one out there. Because again, the campaign is pretty much done. I mean, he's still around and he's still a major factor in what story we have left, but I don't know if it would really change anything, you guys knowing more about him. And plus, at this point, I think I trust you guys enough not to metagame anything. So, but yeah, with Walker was definitely a very deep character, and I put a lot of prep into him as a whole. Oh, we just lost somebody. I think that's Doc.
Yeah,
he's gone.
Left.
Huh. All right.
So, you were gonna say something?
So what arc are we on again?
This is Arc 6, the Manifold.
Okay. Well, you know what? Way earlier in the stream when we were trying to give Kevin
An achievement?
something he was really good at or whatever.
Yeah, he didn't. We could. Well, there were a number of possible achievements.
I figured it out.
Huh.
I think in the shortest amount of time, I'm the one who managed to tick off Walker the most.
Given the
That is true.
when you were introduced.
Yeah.
You
Like within a couple of days, I just make him. I just make myself enemy number one.
Oh yeah, he was angry at you.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I still don't know how you survived.
I think I mentioned this in the Arc 6, but I love how, like, everyone had this grudge against Walker, except Neria, who was just kind of there. Like,
Mr. G didn't have a grudge
really
either.
have any, like...
That's
That's
fair.
true.
But
She didn't have any, like, personal kind of, like, grudges against Walker. She was just like, okay, you guys need my help. I'll come along. You know, this guy's pretty bad, I guess.
Katara was just his similar opposite.
Mm. Yeah, well, Walker ended up being unintentionally a great foil for Katara, in the narrative sense, right? And then in writing terms, like he was essentially, Katara and Walker were foils of one another, and he's definitely the kind of dark character that is kind of like a mirror of what she could have become given different circumstances. But that was, I think we talked about this a bit last week, but you know, getting your reaction essentially to his thematics. But that was definitely something I wanted to go with. I wanted to go in a different direction as far as a big Resident Evil villain went, and not do the expected, you know, monstrous BOW type person, but instead do something a little bit more technological, go in a little bit more of a cyberpunk direction. He was essentially a post-human, and or H+. He was heavily technologically modified, and basically playing him like a caster that way. But there was a lot of interesting ways in which that character developed over time. Because like I said, I had the entire campaign to refine his character in my head and to refine his backstory. And there are a lot of... My conception of him kind of changed over time. And there are a lot of little backstory elements and changing sort of the way I looked at him in order to shape the emotional core of that character. Because I think one of the big things though that I want to highlight is that because in my initial drafts of his backstory, I feel like I was doing a lot of essentially working around trying to make it seem like his villainy was an inevitability. And I realized after a while that wasn't ultimately what was best for making him feel like a human character, right? Like there was a lot of stuff like getting into childhood where it was just like, oh yeah, like he always had like a dark streak, or you know, he was basically destined to become a villain, and that he was like a just straight up evil guy. But I feel like ultimately the change that drove the character in the end, that at least made me be able to find the empathetic core that made it easier to play him, was just rewriting it with the understanding that his villainy wasn't an inevitability, right? And that he was bullied, you know, was essentially it. He was bullied all throughout his childhood, and for no good reason. It was, you know, he was... And I guess that was kind of one of the big changes to the shifts that I had to make writing wise was, you know, he didn't rub people the wrong way because he was a bad person. He to begin with, like he was bullied essentially because he was autistic, and you know, and all those other things.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if anybody picked up on that, but yeah, Walker was autistic, and also a lot of those medications that you guys found in the in his room, in his bathroom, were like for essentially like irritability and other, you know, calming type stuff for his condition. But he had a little bit of basically sovereignty that came with it. He was a very brilliant scientist. and went really far. But as Mr. G accurately observed, kid gets bullied enough, eventually he brings the gun to school.
Yep. Yeah.
So that was ultimately what was important to me, though. When I made that mental shift and realized that was just that empathetic core of the character, that was when I made that change, that little change to the way the backstory was written, and just figured it's like, okay, now I understand this character. Now I could play him as someone who's not cartoonish or not, not somebody that's two-dimensional. So, because ultimately, yeah, there's a lot to feel for that character. There's a lot to hate about him as well, and obviously, he really made the party hate him, because he hit them very personally. But he was still a person, and somebody that had a tragic backstory, essentially. And he had an extreme reaction to it. But I feel like, Lauren, you kind of ultimately caught on to that very quickly. Because from the very first moment that you guys met him, just on a TV screen in Arc 4, you're already pointing out observations where I was like, dang, you figured him out real quick.
I'm like that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Also, yeah. There's just there's a lot about that character that I was probably really already primed to understand about him. Seeing also there's a kind of character I was playing as well.
That's true. I feel like there was a little bit of a mental health thread through this whole campaign. Just very subtly. It was subtext, I guess.
Maybe. We'll say that's intentional.
We'll say it was intentional, yeah. Entirely. It's art.
Yeah, we're great writers.
But again, it's the beauty of RPGs. Unintentional art.
Yeah.
So, I guess one of the last things I also delayed talking about last week was this question for Lauren. So, of course, Mr. G died in the final battle against Walker and went full into the Scorpion identity upon his revival. So, I guess if you want to talk about a bit, what led up to that decision, and what do you envision his future looking like?
He's freaking Robin Hood, but like a murderer Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Well, so I've already...
Hood.
Yeah!
Wait, what?
He's Hood Robin.
Oh, he's Hood Robin. Perfect. Robin into Hood.
Yeah. But there's also fun fact about Robin Hood. Apparently, obviously, that character, we're not quite sure where that character comes from. Robin Hood. It may be that when that character was created, his name was literally a pun.
Really?
Yeah. Like that. Like that's how little we know about that character historically. It's like that. It literally just could have been if somebody wrote a character and made his name a pun. He robs people and he wears a hood.
Oh. Never thought about that.
Anyways, no, so I was actually planning Mr. G's whole, I guess, not in this way, but his departure from the CIA for a while. It's even written into his backstory that he is not there permanently. He has zero loyalties in general. So eventually something's going to have to happen eventually he's just going to get bored and want to move on. So I was already planning that eventually he was going to either move on from the CIA, do something else completely different, or figure out something that he would move on from. What I was originally planning was he was going to try to kill Fox and become the head of that division, basically, and just have all the alphabet soups below him. But I didn't get to kill him.
No,
so,
you failed.
Oh well. No, I was there. I was so close. And then someone hit me in the back of the head with a freaking... I don't know what happened, but I went down and I was unconscious for a whole conversation.
Yep.
But there's Yeah, there is a whole thing with his. I think I talked about his personality changes that he made that were they made sense at the time to do in that way, but was always kind of planned from the start, where he was going to shift not personalities but kind of like his direction, because he was initially I think true neutral, and I think he ended in chaotic good.
Right.
But there was it was going he was going to end up something where he was originally just, I'm just gonna do what's told of me, don't really care what it is. I was like, he has no, because he wasn't supposed to stay. He originally was like, he has no direction. He just goes where people tell him to. So I wanted to have him eventually get to the point where he can make his own decisions. And then having him like change his whole personality to be aligned with like very select stuff from the party. I was like, oh, I can turn him into this like idealistic assassin, basically. Just like this assassin with like very regimented rules of who he goes after, why he goes after them, and just kind of turning him into a kind of what's it called, vigilante, and eventually turning him lawful good with all the stuff he took from the party. But yeah, originally he wasn't supposed to be good, just probably a little bit more like lawful neutral or something along those lines. But eventually he was going to start taking a position of making his own decisions as opposed to taking orders all the time.
Yeah, so that was something. Well, and let's talk about his alignment journey, because I think he went through.
I think he had like 3 different alignment changes.
Yeah, I want to say 3 different alignments at the very least. So
that's not including the chaotic evil that he switched back from really quickly.
That was neutral evil, actually.
The neutral
That's what
evil,
Walker
not including
was, yeah.
the neutral evil that he switched back really quickly. Neutral evil, still no loyalties, was gonna kill Fox and take over the CIA because that's what Walker didn't tell him not to do that. Because that's another thing with Mr. G, when he was given the orders to kill the party and everything, is like, okay, I'm gonna do what you want me to do. I'm still gonna further my own, basically his own career, because once he became lawful evil, he had drives, and that was that whole thing where he was talking about like, once that was removed from him and he went back to true neutral, he was like, I went from chaotic evil to true neutral,
or neutral evil,
or I went from neutral evil to true neutral. Like I had a purpose, I had wants and desires, and then I went back to neutral. I was like, what the hell am I doing? This is wrong. I now realize what it's like, even though they were bad, to have a drive. So like while he was neutral evil, he was like, I'm gonna further my career. I'm gonna do everything he's telling me because I'm compelled to. But he didn't tell me not to make myself more powerful.
There you go. Ooh. Well, he probably would have liked that too if he could keep you under his thumb. Just like, oh,
yeah.
Got a high-ranking CIA official in my pocket here. So, yeah. So what did he start as? It was true neutral.
True neutral.
Then he
went to. I don't remember.
I can bring up the.
Was...
I'd probably bring up the his sheets here.
Yeah, some old sheets.
Yeah,
because I don't keep track of all my old sheets.
Yeah, I have a record of everybody's sheets at every level. So
I have to go back and re-download all of them. Check like level 14 or something, or 10.
Let's see which. Yeah, I thought that was gonna open up on that monitor. Let's see. Yeah, at 8 he was still true neutral. At 10 he was chaotic neutral.
That's right, because that was when he was starting to branch out and start doing things start doing things that he wasn't given orders to do.
Right, yeah, because he was starting to get bored, essentially.
Yeah, and that was when I was starting to have him make decisions that were his own, but obviously still taking orders, still extremely orders driven. But he was starting to be a little bit more, you know what? I'm just gonna start doing stuff, I guess, because he was getting a little bored, and he was getting a little. The CIA wasn't scratching that itch for him anymore.
Hmm. Although interestingly, by about level 14 or so, he returns to true neutral.
He did?
Yeah.
Is that an accident?
I don't know. That is just the way it is. Was there anything going on there that turned him back to true neutral?
I don't remember. I don't know what happened in the story at that point. But
this all would have been during the last arc.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that's what. When did he? At what level did he get mind controlled?
That would. I don't remember what level that was around.
Yeah,
that was in there somewhere. But he went from true
it's
neutral.
Supposed to be true neutral to lawful neutral to chaotic good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So he becomes
true
lawful.
Neutral, chaotic neutral, neutral evil, chaotic neutral, and then chaotic good.
Yeah. So ultimately, he ended up in that chaotic good territory where now he's.
Well, because this is something that I do with characters that has literally no basis in anything. if I'm gonna change a character's alignment, I only change one of their things, either the law chaos or the good evil, or neutral, whatever. So it went from, as you can I did that with Emil as well. One of those changed at a time until it gets eventually to the point that I want to have them in. So he went from true neutral to chaotic neutral to chaotic good.
Mm. And so that was something, and I believe, you just mentioned that was something that you'd been thinking of for a long time. And because I remember very early conversations about that happening. Yeah. Well, obviously,
I think it was originally just supposed to be he was gonna just go back to Johannesburg and just do gangster stuff there.
Yeah, I think that was the idea originally. Because obviously you'd taken up the Scorpion moniker pretty much as soon as you killed her.
But that wasn't
his primary thing. Yeah.
Because he was like, I am the Scorpion, but I am not the Scorpion. I just took over her network, and they're gonna he sent off the old Scorpion crews, the old Scorpion crew to continue doing Scorpion crew stuff, and just management changed was all.
Mm. So, yeah, basically that was it. Yeah, management change. But now that he's buried the Mr. G identity, now he's full on Scorpion. And he's going to be using that to go in a different direction, I guess, is your idea.
Yeah, so now that he's full on Scorpion, he is going to... Well, he's completely going to reinvent everything about himself.
Reinvent everything.
About who he is as a person and who that name represents, and is now going to be a vigilante. He's going to go around killing people who deal in bioweapons.
There you go.
So if Katara wants to go on and start making new viruses, she's cool to do that.
I mean, I figure she would be fine to do it since she's trusted. She won't. Katara's not gonna go out and be like, "All right, so new virus, market. I want to make profit." She's gonna go.
That's fair, because he only kills people who are putting it on the market.
Because her whole thing is virus, keep it to self, and then just see what benefits come out of these things, as she stated.
Yeah.
As soon as he sees a Katara brand BOW out in the wild, he's just like, well, shit.
Katara brand BOW.
Hey guys. Well.
There's not going to be a Katara brand BOW. Well, Katara may have to go to the black market.
You just look under the microscope, and there's just
actually no.
Made in the United States, just imprinted on a cellular level.
Made in the USA.
I will ask: is there still a means to contact Scorpion?
Yeah, you guys know how to contact him. He's
Okay.
also, you know where he lives in Johannesburg.
Okay, cool. Because there's something I need to talk to you about too after for like future campaign.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in a sense, he's a
Yeah.
little bit more public now. Obviously,
That's true.
Scorpion's still not an easy person to get a hold of.
It's just
But
that
you
you
know
know
where
changed
to-
markets. You went
Yeah.
from like
Like if you
Yeah,
go into
yeah.
the criminal underworld, which I guess you
Yeah.
don't really have too many people in that sort of affiliation anymore, because Mr. G kind of brought all the contacts with him. But if you were to go into that world, you'd be able to, get up the chain to Scorpion. And once he finds out that you guys are trying to get a hold of him, probably make it happen.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he'll probably also know if you're trying to get a hold of him before you do.
That's also true,
That's true.
because he's still a good spy. So you went back, essentially, to being a criminal,
Mm-hmm.
but he's still a good spy. So he's essentially the kingpin of Retha's hovel now, right?
Yeah, but like a very skinny kingpin.
Well, you don't have to be a big dude to be a kingpin.
No, but he's like, the kingpin, but not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kingpin.
yeah.
He is a skinny the kingpin.
He's the linchpin. So, yeah, that was quite an interesting ending. I'm glad we got that little bit of extra insight on it.
Also, you guys want to know what his whole deal is?
That's a good question. How much do you want to reveal about Mr. G backstory?
I am curious, but it's all dependent on what you want to reveal.
I'm cool with it because, like I said, at this point now, I'm functionally playing a different character.
Okay.
Because like I was treating it like narratively and also like not necessarily mechanically, but like RP wise with that big change of his going into the final arc. He was kind of he and I were trying to figure out how he was going to reconcile with all these new personality traits that he had. Like I think at one point when we were all in the cell block, I think like Isla was just like, "Why is Mr. G being so nice?" And I was just like, "I'm trying to figure this out too."
The confusion.
Like, hey, he's trying to figure out how to be nice. I'm trying to figure out how to make him be nice. I'm just trying to go for stuff and just see what feels good. But it's like, now that it's all, that whole thing is finished, I'm basically gonna be coming into anytime he comes in, it's gonna be a functionally different character. It's gonna act different. It's gonna sound different. It's gonna.
That's
obviously
true.
he's
You
got
got a new
broken jaw.
voice.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
British.
Well, that's the interesting thing too. Actually, I hadn't
Yeah,
thought about
right.
that. But Mr. G,
He might go back to his natural Italian accent.
I was gonna say, Mr. G's voice, or rather, this character's voice, through all its different identities, has never been entirely his own.
Yeah.
It's always dependent on another factor. Because, well, you never really brought this up in campaign, but I know this from conversations out of it, is that Mr. G's voice, the one that we know is Mr. G's voice, isn't his natural voice. That's from his injury.
It's from-
Well, and then also
also, like, yeah, his accent. He does have an accent, but the voice that he's using, or the voice that I'm using to play him, was the result of physical deformity, by way of knife to his jugular.
yeah, because he got his throat slit, and that's why he has that little bit of gravel.
Yeah,
But then he got his jaw
broken.
dislodged,
and
and
he's got a little bit of a lisp.
yeah, and so like that's an interesting little factor that his voice was essentially never his own.
When I do that voice now, I don't open my mouth. I just play him with a constant underbite, just like this all the time. Just talk.
Oral
without opening
posture,
my mouth,
acting technique.
because he's got a broken jaw. So
And that was one of those.
This is doing-
She did, but it's still freaking messed up. There are freaking
Yeah.
bolts holding it together.
Yeah, I was telling Raph, I was like, "Can you just like remove his? Like, it kicked it off."
Yeah,
because I want to come back in with a metal jaw.
because that was the thing we'd collaborated on a bit about that, because I'd realized after the fact that Mr. G's death was somewhat unceremonious. I didn't necessarily want that to be the case. I always want character deaths to be something big and memorable, even if they are temporary. But I'm
cool with it though.
Yeah, I'd kind of glossed over it in the moment because that session was running super long, and I didn't, we kind of just had to keep moving. So, but afterwards I was feeling kind of bad about that, so I wanted to kind of retroactively say, I talked to Lauren afterwards, and I was like, okay, so I want to add a little bit of extra flavor to that, because, yeah, A, I didn't want his death to be too unceremonious, and B, getting curb stomped is a brutal way to go. And he got curb stomped against that crate that he was next to. And I was telling Lauren, I was thinking of that movie. We'd seen that Scott Adkins movie, Avengement.
Which is a pretty decent movie, actually, if you guys want to go watch it.
Yeah, actually a pretty surprisingly good movie. But there's some very, very graphic, brutal violence in it. And one of the particular images from that really sparked my imagination of just like, yeah, getting stomped on is just no pretty affair. And I wanted to emphasize that was like Mr. G had just been brutalized, right? Yeah. That is something that is going to physically affect him. And so so I wanted to add that idea of the fact that his jaw had gotten full on dislodged, and that is obviously an injury that he can heal from, but it's going to have permanent consequences on him. Like it's essentially like his throat getting slit before is essentially a permanent deformity about him now.
It's the first time he hit 0 hit points.
I don't think that's true.
No, you should see the amount of hit points he had.
He'd been hit 0 hit points more than once, but hadn't he?
Well, that was the first time he could hit 0 hit points before the campaign started.
Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you meant that at the end there, because I was like,
no, when he got his throat slit.
Yeah,
was the first time he hit 0 hit points, and that was before the campaign.
Yeah.
Was kind of my implication, because I was like, he's not gonna live for a very long time, I don't think. Played him with 10 Constitution, 0 plus 0 to all of his HP rolls.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
Great, I freaking love it. I'm doing it again.
You rolled below average as well.
A lot.
Well, I mean, no, I'm talking over the course of the entire thing. Your ultimate sum was below average.
Yeah, yeah. Like I rolled below, because he only has a D8.
Yeah,
I rolled below 4 a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of 2s in there. Lots of 2s and 3s.
Yeah, which is brutal. Brutal when you don't have any con.
Anytime we saw a 2 or whatever, it was just, oh, come on.
It's just like, great. Still at 50.
You didn't even get close to triple digits, did you?
Nope, not even close. Not even close. I didn't think I was going to get halfway to 100 by the end of the campaign, but I barely did.
You're squishier than the freaking cancer-riddled scientist.
Which is the funniest thing. Like, it's the funniest thing, because I built Nuria to be this thin, frail, like, character, and she's probably got...
She has bigger con than the...
stats in the entire party.
She has higher con than the agent and a higher strength than
the
survivor.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Higher strength. She had a higher strength than Katara at one point.
Oh my gosh.
yeah. Like I was like, wait, what's the strength that? What?
Katara had to get Captain America to surpass her.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, what happened to Denuria, man? Did she just like start working out at some point?
It was after Emil gave her those tablets, man.
Yeah, those miracle drugs.
Purity's a hell of a drug.
That's the
miracle drugs, and then just a bunch of housework out.
Mm-hmm. She's got some dumbbells. She's going. Start doing Taibo. Get that con up.
She wakes up one morning and she's got bigger muscles than Katara.
Katara just waking up one day like, why am I hearing weightlifting, calming music? What's happening out here? Huh?
Nuria's just
300.
Nuria's a walking advertisement for Pyridine now.
Pyridine.
Just like, look at the wonders this thing can do for you.
Got cancer? Not anymore.
Take Pyridine.
So
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's a virus.
Oh no! You were infected all along.
I mean, technically, Pyridine is synthesized from Katara's bloodline.
so it's just a little bit of Katara in her now.
You're
At all times.
Well,
Is the only difference.
So Nuri's gonna have 4 sisters. She's got 2 blood sisters and then
I guess
So there's-
technically, Archaea's living on in a lot of people now too.
That's true. A lot of
Oh,
people.
God.
A lot of people.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of
Sharing each other's blood.
this is just one big, just like freaking. I mean, they warned us about the needles and stuff, but in school, but this is an even worse STI danger. This whole campaign. There's so much blood sharing.
so much going on here.
All right. Well, with that said, I think we have
Cheesesteak.
gotten through all of the arc. So, are there any last questions that anybody has before we wind down the final Resident retrospect?
Oh yeah, what weapons did we miss?
Oh, yeah. You said you wanted
Weapons
to.
and items.
So let me think about that. Mostly,
Can I get a large?
Mr. Neria
I
legendary
mean,
item.
I'm looking. What I'm looking for is a certain launcher, a certain grenade launcher. That's a legendary grenade launcher. I hope wasn't missed whatsoever. In
oh,
Arc
were you talking the one that I added? I think in the latest item compendium,
Yeah.
because
Oh, you mean the one in
found
Kajuju?
I'd found the that was from the Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3DS game, which
Mhm.
I would
Oh, wow.
absolutely love for them to make a port of that game, because that game was actually great. It was basically like a Mercenaries All-Stars kind of thing.
It was great. Yeah, I owned it. It was great.
Yeah, it was
Oh, yeah.
great, wasn't it? Like, it was surprisingly good. And I think they needed to just do a graphical overhaul and port that. Well, I'm still of the belief that Resident Evil needs a good multiplayer-only game. I think
Yeah.
it can be done. I think it can be done. A lot of people are really skeptical about the idea, but it's just about doing it the right way. Because in my opinion, the reason why their multiplayer-only games haven't really been or rather multiplayer-focused games haven't been too successful is because they're focusing so much on PvP. And I think Resident Evil would really thrive as a multiplayer-only game that is PvE, and just bring in characters from all throughout the franchise, and mercenaries modes, raid modes, wave survival hasn't really been, that's my pitch. But that notwithstanding, yeah, I'd been reminded of that, so I was like, that needs to be an item. Threw that 2-way grenade launcher in there. But no, that was not available in the campaign.
Okay.
That said, yeah.
Oh yeah, go on.
So what you guys did miss, I can't remember too much from early on. I don't think there was anything major that you guys missed for most of the campaign. You guys pretty much found all the major items. You guys did a fair amount of exploration, so you pretty much found most of the things I would have had set up for you. But that said, you did, in the final arc, miss a good few items in Kajuju. Because because I was really sad about this in particular. The merchant did not appear in the final arc. But because he was in Kajuju. Capitalizing on the civil conflict there. Yeah. But you guys missed out on him entirely in the sixth arc.
Man, if Jamlo survives, you probably could have hung out with the merchant.
So, but yeah, one of the things he had a bunch of, well, so essentially that merchant was in place to address a lot of the things that were missing up to that point that I'd become aware of. So specific things that people had talked about or requested. So he was stocked with rifles that used BMG ammo, since people were curious about that. And he was he was stocked also with...
I have 15 rounds in my pocket for no reason.
He was also stocked with larger attaché cases, because I realized there weren't enough of those in circulation.
I needed
People that needed them.
Mm-hmm. So that's what that merchant had that was in Kajuju.
I just want BMG rounds.
Sadly,
Man,
sadly, I don't even think I'm going to bring him back for the Kajuju one-shot, because it would just be kind of pointless with these characters that aren't... Actually, no, maybe it won't, because depending on
might use it once.
Depending on how we run things, actually, it might be appropriate. But we'll decide. We'll talk about that more off-stream.
Raph,
So
I need to send a freaking inventory request to the Kajuju merchant.
Well-
Trade some weapons. I have a weapons running operation.
I mean, to be fair,
I need a BMG, man.
you're Scorpion now, so you probably can get the merchant on speed dial and
Hell yeah.
just have one merchant sent to your to Rethus Hovel at all times.
Dude, no, actually, that's pretty dope. I like that. There is a merchant outpost in Rethus Hovel.
There you go. Yeah, you call them in. You're like, all these black market dealers here, all these arms runners. These guys are small potatoes. We need to bring some class to this place.
Mhm.
Just like
Some
call them
name
in.
brand.
Yeah, just like I'm gonna give you a booth right there in that corner. That's your corner now, merchant.
So, Scorpion, real quick, I need you to make a speed dial to Red Oracle to get Malik on your side with Malik's people.
He's already in business with the Red Oracle. He's
That's
got
true.
a Red Oracle bodyguard.
Mr. G can make
Malik?
some phone calls.
It's not Malik. It's Storm.
Could be Malik.
It could be Malik.
Well, he has Storm, who was that one guy who I killed.
Yeah,
His bodyguard,
Ibrahim.
Ibrahim.
Yeah, he'd hired Red Oracle security. He had that Storm guy. You killed him and then recruited his
Probably-
bodyguard.
His problem was just like, hey, how much to hire you? He was like, I'm still currently hired. How much to hire you?
That's basically how it went. Yeah, so those are I think that was the major thing that you guys would have missed there. I will say the other thing, I did not, because obviously in the final arc I introduced a lot of powerful items, legendary rarity, in order to gear you guys up for the final battle. And obviously each one was geared towards specific characters. Well, in the last two arcs, because in the Gathering I started introducing legendary items, and there was obviously basically one for each of the main player characters, and then more legendary items in Arc 6 to gear you up for the final battle that basically gave everyone ultimates. But I did not plan any legendary items to be specifically geared towards what were previously guest characters like Nuria and Kevin. So yeah, there wasn't anything you missed that could have gone towards you guys. I just didn't plan for that. I was thinking those were specifically geared for the legacy characters that
Well,
had been main party
Nuria-
members for the past couple of essentially like the starter players, I guess, was essentially what it went towards.
Yeah.
However, it's got the gauntlets.
But yeah,
That's true.
that's true. You got the
And the PRL is kind of coming up next too.
yeah, the
Yeah.
PRL
Finally,
again. That had been on the table for a long time. That wasn't geared to anybody in particular.
Projects.
Yeah. That, like I said, that as a research project, that had been on the table for a long time. So that wasn't geared towards anyone in particular,
Yeah.
but it's kind of worked out that it's kind of Kevin's
Yeah.
thing now.
Kevin's
oh yeah.
Yeah.
taking
Yeah, for
that.
sure.
You've been waiting forever for this. That is
Literally,
Kevin, no one else.
literally just like waiting for the clock to tick down.
Well, I mean, if Kevin happens to die, I mean,
He's gonna get buried with it.
wouldn't no gonna have to
Buried with it.
gonna have to take it from you.
Upload
Just-
his consciousness into the
Yeah.
This
Upload
is
your consciousness into the PRL, and then you'll be Kevin PRL legendary item.
Oh boy. Are you guys
Check it
about
out.
to how it should have ended this whole campaign? Just point out the logical leaps that can now be made given the concepts that have been introduced. Just everybody's gonna get preserved and everyone's gonna live forever.
This party will live on for eternity.
So certain people get it for free. Other people need to pay up at least 10K plus. Depends on how nice guitar is feeling that day.
Be making bank.
Making bank. You want to live forever.
You want an
want to be in a
experience.
digital consciousness.
So, but yeah, it has kind of worked out that the former guest characters have gotten their super powerful items. Yeah, because Nuria got Walker's gauntlets, and Kevin is getting the PRL.
Guitar of fears.
Nuria sweats.
So, any other questions that are lingering that we can address?
One last chance.
One last chance. It's not really the last chance, but the last public chance.
Well, this is actually if you don't ask for Mr. G's name, I'm not telling you.
What's Mr. G's name?
I'm not telling you.
I love his name.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Speaking of which, this random thing happened the other day. This is relevant. I was talking to an old friend of mine from high school, and she randomly found I think she found a login to one of her old YouTube accounts that had a video uploaded featuring the person who I got his name from.
Really?
And she just sent this to me the day after, or the day of, I think, of the last episode.
Wow. What a cosmic coincidence.
I was just like, look at that.
Wait, so you named him after a real person?
No. But yes. His name is, his last name is similar to a person who I went to high school with.
Fascinating. So are you gonna drop
his
it?
His name
exclusive.
Is, huh?
Exclusive.
His name is Maximilian Naswell.
Max Naswell, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Which I love because there's a character in Phoenix Wright whose name is Maximilian and is a magician.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, he's a Maximilian.
Huh.
Now, what was that nickname that
Nothing to do
the
with you whatsoever, which is probably the biggest plot twist.
Yeah. Well, he's a G, man.
Wow. Yeah.
I like you cut G.
Yeah.
Like you cut G. Breaks jaw.
What were you saying?
I was just wondering, what was that nickname that the mob had given him again, or one of his?
He had a bunch of different.
Boy.
That's true.
Because Pretty Boy was the name that he was given by the street gang he started with. Because he was kind of small, thin, and high charisma. So he was called Pretty Boy because he didn't really do anything that was too crazy or anything, but he was just really good at talking his way out of situations. So I was like, oh yeah, it's Pretty Boy over there. And then he got his throat slit. And then it's you're not as convincing as you used to be, so I dropped his charisma down to 14 because that was the highest I can get. Which actually was one of the reasons why, because I didn't roll super well with him. He was extremely average with one good stat, which went into Dex immediately because it couldn't go anywhere else. His second highest stat went into charisma, which I think originally was only a 12, and I was like. Sure, the reason he only has a 12 charisma is because he got his throat slit and sounds like shit. But yeah, that was the reason why he was called Pretty Boy. And then eventually he started killing when they realized that he was an absolute psychopath. And then he started getting names like the Grim Reaper, which is why he has a Grim Reaper tat on his arm.
There's another Grim
Hunk
Reaper.
wants to know your location.
What was that?
Hunk wants to know your location.
Oh no, he wasn't called the Grim Reaper. He was called I think it was the White Reaper or something. Because
The what boy?
It was just Reaper.
The
and
Reaper?
Then there was also White Devil. And then
Yeah,
Red
that's what
Light
it
Runner.
was. Yeah. White Devil was one of
I
the
would
names that he
agree.
was given as well.
Yeah. Well, that was a fascinating backstory in general. I love the way you formatted it as basically a psych evaluation.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very flavorful. So that was one of the funner backstories to read for that reason, because that was actually a pretty creative format.
Yeah, because his entire backstory was him recounting his history to a psych therapist who was going to give that to Mr. Fox as as clearance for him to go into the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I just love that concept of a backstory that's not written by the character. That's not written from the character's point of view, even.
You don't want the backstory that he wrote.
It's true. It's probably true.
It's just like, what happened to you? It's like, where'd he come from? Arizona. My dad's name was Billy.
That true?
Probably. there is somebody named Billy in Arizona who will claim me as his son. I could say that much.
What a character. So, unless there aren't any other burning questions, I think it's time we wind down this final retrospect.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you all very much.
This was going to be a short one.
This was going to
This
be.
was a short one. It was only 4 hours.
Well, shorter than that, according to the audience that is watching on YouTube.
That's true.
But thank you all very much for watching. And thank you all for coming along and playing this campaign. I'm looking forward to what comes next and what stories we have yet still within the context of this campaign.
I'm ready to go.
And anything else still to come.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that I kind of wanted to tease towards the end here to kind of give you guys something to look forward to. And here's essentially the slate of what we have planned. Next
That's
up,
R related?
that's Resident Roleplay, yeah.
Yeah.
So next up is going to be the Resident Roleplay Kajuju one-shot, where they play that mission that they had skipped in Kajuju through the perspective of the BSA soldiers there. It might have a little bit of a twist to it that I don't know if you guys will be expecting. So look forward to that one. In terms of our audience, at least. We've been discussing how that one's going to go, and I think it's going to be a little bit different from original expectations.
I'm super excited.
But it is still going to be the proper adventure I'd written there.
I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Then we're going to have, I think for the first time, a guest GM for this campaign.
Technically, I did the offshoot as well.
I don't know if I would call that part of the campaign proper, though. I think that was its own thing, whereas this is going to be firmly rooted within the campaign. So, Lauren, you're going to be guest GMing a Madigan's Lab one-shot to follow up on that character.
Because I thought it'd be cool.
Yeah, and also I kind of liked the idea of you being able to give out some loot that will be able to stay with the characters.
It's gonna be stupid. You're gonna hate me, Raph. We're gonna go into the last everything, and just gonna be like, here's all the stuff I gave him, by the way.
So we'll definitely work together to figure out the limits of it. But
nope.
What?
DC 25 wisdom save or banish.
No. And then of course there's this possible document of compiling all of our writings, all of our extra writings for the campaign. Mm-hmm. But of course the big things to look forward to later this year, we'll be running Resident Roleplay Prometheus, which will be the Emil story arc, little mini series that we will be running with the party, essentially finishing the last thread. And we do also have a couple of one-shots that aren't as strictly planned that I have ideas for to continue with this party as well, but they're just going to be kind of here and there. And official release of the Resident Evil Untold rulebook is coming very soon. Stay tuned to our Twitch, because I plan to do some design streams as we wrap that up. So, that said, there's a little bit of a taste of things still to come. Still a little bit of Resident Roleplay to look forward to. But for now, we say goodbye to this campaign as we look back on it one last time. And look forward to these other things that I've just listed here. So again, thank you very much again.
Great.
Yeah, lots of exciting stuff in the future. But for now, we'll see you all later. Peace. Squared. Have a good night. God bless.
Good night, sweet dreams. All of the good things.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.